The main character used to be the lowest-ranked student in the entire academy, unable to awaken any supernatural ability and constantly bullied by his classmates. But when several members of the student council came looking for trouble, he took them all down with nothing more than a few basic punches, leaving every single one of them unable to fight back. Even the academy's #1 genius was completely stunned by what she had just testified. Yet the main character was actually disappointed, because the fight was already over before he even had a chance to warm up. What no one knew was that he hadn't just awakened an SS rank ability, he was also the only person in the entire world to possess all 5 elemental attributes. This was a world constantly under attack by demonic creatures, where everyone would awaken a supernatural ability upon reaching adulthood. In his previous life, the main character had awakened an S-rank talent, but during the final battle against the demonic beasts, he lost his only younger sister. With no other choice, he ultimately chose to self-destruct and take the Demon King down with him. However, when he opened his eyes again, everything had changed. Not only had he been reborn 10 years into the past, but he had also awakened the power of Devour. At this point, the world had yet to be destroyed, giving him plenty of time to build up his strength. Just then, he suddenly felt a surge of energy stirring inside his body. It was the lightning-type assassin class he had possessed in his previous life. And immediately afterward, he awakened the glutton system, which gave him the ability to devour other supernatural abilities. Just as he prepared to test it, his roommate and close friend, Ma Long, walked into the room. Long was an E-rank flower chanter, and the bandages covering his face showed he hadn't escaped yesterday's beating either. He had simply come to check whether Chen was all right. Before long, Chen noticed something important. Long couldn't see the floating system windows at all. That meant the interface existed for his eyes only. After examining Chen more closely, Long was shocked to discover that every one of his injuries had already healed. He couldn't understand how someone who hadn't even awakened could recover faster than an actual awakener. Looking at his old friend brought back painful memories. Although Long eventually awakened during college, he remained one of the weakest awakeners and was brutally killed just 3 days after Wrath descended. Chen quietly smiled, grateful for the chance to see his friend alive once again. Long then reminded him that their rank assessment was tomorrow, an exam that was crucial if they wanted to graduate. Feeling sorry for Chen, he assumed his friend still hadn't awakened. As they walked through the crowded streets together, Chen casually remarked that it had been a long time since he had seen so many people alive, completely terrifying Long with the strange comment. Deep down, Chen knew that if he failed to change history, every one of these people would suffer the same tragic fate all over again. Because of that, he became even more determined to level up as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, there was one major obstacle. At this point in history, Awakeners could only gain experience by defeating monsters inside demon layers, and those locations were entirely controlled by the major guilds. Someone as weak and unaffiliated as Chen had almost no chance of getting inside. Opening his status screen again, he carefully compared his attributes against both Awakeners and monsters. The government ranked Awakeners from E-class all the way to S-class, and Chen knew nearly every student at the university was still stuck at E-rank, with only a handful barely reaching D-rank. He glanced at Long and quietly chuckled to himself, confident he was already stronger than his friend. Suddenly, a ball came flying out of nowhere and smashed directly into Long's face, sending his glasses flying before they shattered on the ground. The troublemakers were none other than Gongchong and his lackeys, the same bullies who had beaten them up the day before. With a smug grin, Gongchong mocked Long for not bringing drinks, even though he knew they were playing here. Long immediately apologized and was about to pay for everything himself, but Chen stepped forward and stopped him, coldly saying that the one who should be apologizing was Gongchong. The sight of the bully instantly dragged Chen back into the nightmare of his previous life. These same guys had once tried to drown him in a sink, then shamelessly claimed they were only forcing him to awaken. They didn't stop until he passed out, and when Long rushed over to help, Gongchong simply beat Chen even more. Shaking off those painful memories, Chen finally decided enough was enough. Hearing him talk back, Gongchong and his lackeys immediately marched over, fully intending to silence him once again. Chen stared directly at the arrogant bully, knowing he only acted this way because his older brother was the student council president. As the confrontation drew attention, students gathered from every direction, already expecting Chen to get beaten like always. Standing right in front of him, Gongchong demanded to know what he had just said. Without showing the slightest fear, Chen calmly repeated that they needed to stop bothering him from now on. Enraged, Gongchong immediately threw a punch, but Chen effortlessly blocked it with one hand before forcing the bully backward. The entire crowd froze in disbelief. As far as anyone knew, Chen hadn't even awakened, yet he had stopped the attack as if it were nothing. Humiliated, Gongchong rushed in again. This time, Chen quietly switched into his lightning assassin class while Long watched in complete shock. Activating his indestructible demon armor, Gongchong charged forward with everything he had. Before the bully could even react, Chen disappeared in a blur and blasted him away with a lightning-infused punch. The spectators couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. The weakest student in school had sent the infamous bully flying with a single hit. Even after crashing to the ground, Gongchang refused to admit defeat and screamed for his lackeys to avenge him. But after witnessing Chen's overwhelming strength, none of them dared to move. Desperate, Gongchang forced himself back onto his feet and launched one last attack, only to be completely overwhelmed again and sent flying without the slightest chance of fighting back. Watching their leader get crushed so effortlessly, the lackeys immediately realized they were hopelessly outmatched and fled without looking back. Long stood there with his mouth hanging open, unable to believe that the same roommate who had been helpless yesterday was now powerful enough to dominate the school bully. Meanwhile, Chen confirmed that, just like in his previous life, he could freely switch into his assassin form whenever he wanted. Even at level 1, his stats were already strong enough to overwhelm ordinary low-level awakeners, meaning his true combat ability had already reached at least D class. Even after crushing Gongchang, Chen notices something strange. The system never rewarded him with a level up. Wanting to test a theory, he steps forward as if he's about to finish the bully off for good, sending everyone nearby into a panic. Just before things go too far, the vice president of the student council, Ling Yu, rushes in and tells him to stop. She admits Gongchang was clearly in the wrong, but insists he's already been punished enough and promises he won't dare bother Chen again. Hearing that, Chen finally backs down. Still, he can't help wondering why the student council is so determined to protect someone like Gongchang. In truth, he never intended to kill him. It was only an act. But he knows bullies like this will never change unless they're taught a real lesson. Afterward, Chen leaves with Malong, while the frightened lackeys watch from a distance and quietly swear they'll never mess with him again. That night, Long excitedly tells their other roommates that Chen has awakened as an unbelievably powerful lightning assassin, but nobody believes a word of it. He keeps insisting he personally watched Chen destroy Gongchang, yet Xiangzuo, an E-rank nucleus mage, laughs it off. He argues that if Chen were really that strong, he wouldn't still be wasting time on basic physical training, because true awakeners don't need it anymore. Hearing that, their gamer roommate, Shang Yu, jokes that Long must have hit his head too hard. Zuo goes even further, reminding everyone that the four of them were placed in the same dorm because they were the weakest students in the entire school. According to him, nothing will ever change that. He proudly declares himself the strongest among them, calling Long and Shang Yu nothing more than support chanters, and confidently insists there's no way Chen could have become a lightning assassin. In fact, he's already dreaming about ranking up during tomorrow's graduation assessment. Meanwhile, inside an E-rank demon lair, Student Council President Gong Ting finishes his training and walks out alongside Ling Yu. Spotting his younger brother waiting outside, he asks why he's still hanging around. Gongchang immediately complains that he can't even sleep knowing the guy who humiliated him is still out there, then begs his brother to take revenge. Ting calmly tells him he'll deal with the trouble himself. Later, while they're eating together, Ling Yu asks how he plans to handle the situation. Instead of answering directly, Ting asks whether Chen is really as strong as his brother claims. Ling Yu points out that there are fewer than 10 D-rank students in the entire academy, and every single one has already been recruited into Ting's organization. On top of that, ordinary students have no access to demon layers like he does, so someone like Chen shouldn't even be capable of standing against him. Elsewhere, Chen continues pushing himself to the absolute limit, sprinting through pouring rain with a backpack loaded with 100 kilos, nearly twice his own body weight. His goal is to finish a full 20-kilometer run because he knows raw physical conditioning raises an awakener's limits, allowing the body to withstand greater power in the future. As he runs, painful memories flood back. He remembers the day Wrath descended, slaughtering countless humans in an instant, including his older sister, the only family he had left, right before his eyes. From that moment on, killing Wrath became the purpose of his life, because that single event marked the beginning of humanity's destruction. Chen knows the Demon Lord is already growing stronger, even with 3 years remaining before the invasion, so he has no choice but to grow even faster. Just then, his sister Suan suddenly calls him. Hearing her voice again after what feels like a lifetime leaves him speechless. She apologizes for calling so late, explaining she has been busy preparing for a competition. She also mentions that if she wins, the prize money could finally solve their rent problems. Chen quietly listens with a gentle smile, silently promising himself that this time he will protect her no matter what, and give her the future she deserves. After hanging up, he completes 3 more laps around campus before finally taking a shower. Feeling himself gradually adapting to his younger body and its incredible growth potential, Chen begins thinking about the biggest obstacle ahead. Demon layers are controlled by wealthy organizations, and without access to monsters, he has no way to continue leveling up. While searching for an answer, he eventually falls asleep, only to awaken inside the mysterious gluttony system. He finds himself standing in a bizarre world and wonders if it's all just a dream. Back in reality, Ma Long notices Chen has mysteriously vanished and starts searching everywhere for him. Inside the strange realm, Chen spots a gigantic tower rising into the sky. Before he can investigate, a pack of E-rank deathhounds suddenly appears. Thinking he may have entered a real demon lair, he immediately switches classes. Since the monsters have already attacked, he decides to survive first and ask questions later. The hounds prove to, but it fares no better than the others. Chen slices it down with ease, levels up once again, and notices the boss grants far more experience than ordinary monsters. Then something unusual happens. The defeated boss is marked with the word Devour, leaving Chen completely puzzled. Remembering the gluttony ability shown on his status screen, he reaches out to activate it. In an instant, the monster's body is absorbed and transformed into a class card. Chen is stunned. He has just discovered that he can convert defeated monsters into entirely new classes for himself. Even more shocking, this is the exact same ability once possessed by the demon lord Lan Yu. The realization sends chills down his spine. In this world, almost everyone is born with only one class, while a tiny handful are lucky enough to have two. But Chen can now collect and wield countless classes, as he wonders where such a terrifying power came from, and what the mysterious Dark Tower truly is. A terrifying presence suddenly fills the air. A demon wielding two S-rank blades appears before him. One glance is enough for Chen to realize the creature is an S-rank opponent, far beyond anything he can defeat right now. Even so, he summons a lightning sword and chooses to fight, gambling his life on the impossible. Strangely, the demon already knows his name. The two exchange blows, but it quickly becomes obvious that the monster is merely playing with him. It deliberately avoids fatal strikes, repeatedly knocking Chen down instead of killing him outright. After completely overwhelming him, the demon finally speaks, offering Chen a chance to live on one condition: remain here forever and guard the tower alongside him. Chen refuses without hesitation, and the demon responds by mercilessly slashing through his arm. The demon raises its blade and threatens to finish Chen once and for all. It admits the only reason it held back was because Chen was the first person ever to reach this place, giving him one final chance to reconsider. But even with death staring him in the face, Chen refuses to surrender. Instead, he roars, charges straight back into battle, and launches another desperate attack. Throughout the fight, however, he hasn't been fighting blindly. He's been carefully analyzing every movement the demon makes. He notices a 0.4-second delay before each swing, just enough time to read the angle of its wrist and dodge with pinpoint precision. Even more importantly, every attack leaves behind a tiny 0.2-second recovery window where the demon is completely exposed. Chen bets everything on that single opening and drives his attack toward its heart. He knows full well that a D-rank fighter has no chance of defeating an S-rank monster. His real objective is simply to paralyze the demon long enough to escape. The plan succeeds, and he immediately sprints toward the only light he can see, believing it's an exit. But the instant he reaches it, the light disappears. The demon calmly reveals that it was nothing more than an illusion, and tells Chen there is no way out of this place. It explains that this palace isn't a demon lair at all, then unexpectedly praises Chen for discovering flaws in its attacks so quickly. The creature finally introduces itself as the Purgatory Rakshasa, and tells Chen that he truly is the one capable of bringing hope. As Chen studies its appearance more carefully, his eyes widen in shock. He's seen this exact form before. His memories immediately return to the final battle against Demon King Lan Yu before he traveled back in time. During that fight, Lan Yu transformed into countless terrifying creatures: a dragon, enormous monsters, and beings capable of controlling magma, poisonous vines, and lightning even stronger than Chen's own. Yet among all those transformations, one stood out above the rest. It looked exactly like the Rakshasa standing before him now. The realization hits him like a bolt of lightning. Every one of those forms must have been part of Lan Yu's power, and since that same power now resides within him, the Rakshasa is nothing more than a manifestation of the gluttony ability living inside his own body. Hearing Chen reach that conclusion on his own genuinely impresses the demon. It calmly declares that he is worthy of inheriting the power of this entire dimension. Confused, Chen asks what it means by an entire dimension. In response, the Rakshasa summons a golden void key, explaining that it is the only key capable of entering and leaving the gigantic tower behind it. The demon reveals that Lan Yu once devoured countless powerful monsters, and its sacred duty was to guard the tower, imprisoning the strongest of them. Now, it has chosen to pass that responsibility on to Chen. It wants him to enter the tower, devour those imprisoned monsters, grow stronger, and continue its mission. Unable to understand why a demon would help a human, Chen questions its motives. The Rakshasa quietly explains that even the demon world has both good and evil. Long ago, a cruel monster slaughtered its entire clan simply for amusement. Ever since then, it has waited for someone capable of avenging them, and now it believes Chen is that person. It even mentions that someone else had already declared Chen their greatest hope. Naturally, Chen demands to know who that person is. But the Rakshasa only smiles, and says every answer awaits him inside the tower. With its final words, it offers Chen all of its remaining power, asking only one thing in return: that he become the strongest human alive. It warns him that devouring every powerful beast imprisoned within the tower will be an unimaginably difficult journey, as each one is intelligent enough to become a deadly opponent. Before fading away, the Rakshasa leaves him with one final lesson. Only someone driven by an endless hunger for strength deserves to inherit the power of the Purgatory Rakshasa. That relentless ambition is the only thing capable of destroying every demon king in existence. As soon as those words fade, the demon's body transforms into a blazing sphere of energy that Chen absorbs without hesitation. Instantly, he gains 8 levels, acquires both of the Rakshasa's legendary swords, and accepts the fallen warrior's final request without a second thought. Along with a massive boost to his stats, he unlocks the ability to manipulate gravity and absorb power from the corpses of both humans and demons. The next morning, Chen slowly opens his eyes back in his dorm room as though nothing had happened. His roommates are already awake, loudly telling him to hurry before they're late for school. Feeling perfectly fine, Chen briefly wonders if everything from the night before was just a dream. But the moment he checks his status screen, all doubt disappears. His level has jumped from 2 all the way to 10 overnight. Everything really happened. Curious about his current rank, Chen begins examining his new strength, only for one of his roommates to start teasing him about all the ridiculous stories Ma Long had been telling the night before about Chen becoming an unbelievably powerful lightning assassin. Across the room, Ma Long quietly pretends he had absolutely nothing to do with it. Laughing, the roommate tells Chen to prove everyone wrong during today's ranking test, the event that decides who deserves the title of Dorm King. On the way to school, the self-proclaimed Dorm King proudly lectures everyone that each awakening rank is divided into 3 separate tiers. Even though they're all E rank, he boasts that he's already reached the middle tier, putting him far above the so-called bottom feeders. Acting like he's already superior, he confidently declares that he feels much stronger than before and is certain he'll rank up during today's evaluation. Fed up with his non-stop bragging, Ma Long urges Chen to stop holding back and aim for at least D rank so this loudmouth will finally shut up. When they arrive at school, the campus is packed with nervous students waiting for the ranking ceremony to begin. Soon after, Gong Chong and his group swagger onto campus, mocking everyone they pass as if they own the place. The Dorm King's confidence instantly evaporates the moment he sees them. But to everyone's surprise, the bullies react completely differently. The instant they spot Chen, they immediately bow respectfully and greet him as Big Brother Chen without the slightest hesitation. Watching this unbelievable scene, Chen's roommates slowly begin realizing that maybe Ma Long wasn't exaggerating after all. Chen pays the bullies no attention and simply continues walking until another student blocks his path. It's Jian, a student council officer known as the president's personal enforcer. Speaking politely but firmly, he informs Chen that the student council president has personally ordered him to punish the person who dared to lay a hand on his younger brother. Chen's friends instantly scatter, terrified of the notorious D-rank enforcer who handles all of the student council's dirty work. His roommates can't understand why someone this powerful is personally targeting Chen. Jian steps right into Chen's face and smugly boasts that his extraordinary sense of smell allows him to judge anyone's strength. According to what he smells, Chen is nothing more than a weak and pathetic nobody. Amused instead of intimidated, Chen immediately fires back with a sharp insult, calling him nothing more than a dog. Jian explodes with rage the moment he hears those words and is ready to attack on the spot. But before the confrontation can erupt, his master, the student council president, orders him to stand down, making it clear they won't create a public spectacle here. After looking into the situation, the president quickly discovered the truth. His younger brother had been the one who picked the fight in the first place, and getting beaten was simply the consequence of provoking someone far stronger. Even so, he shoots Chen a cold, razor-sharp glare before a professor suddenly announces that the official rank assessment ceremony is about to begin, calling students forward one by one as their names are read. Deciding the warning was enough, the president tells his lackey it's time to leave, convinced Chen won't stir up any more trouble. Meanwhile, from a high balcony overlooking the event, a man asks Vice President Ling Yu why she personally came to watch this year's ceremony and wonders if a certain freshman has caught her attention. She only smiles and quietly replies that this year's class is going to be very interesting. Before long, Shang is called first. The dorm leader steps through the entrance with obvious nerves, only to find himself inside a completely different environment. Each student is evaluated alone within a special demon realm, where a demon heart, connected to countless cables, absorbs an awakener's energy to determine both their current rank and future potential. Once the power is released, the data is transmitted back to Earth for everyone to see. Shang's current rank remains exactly the same as before, but when his potential takes unusually long to appear, everyone starts holding their breath. The numbers slowly climb before finally stopping at C rank. The result crushes his confidence, making him realize the progress he believed he'd made wasn't nearly as great as he imagined. His roommates immediately comfort him, reminding him they're all in the same situation anyway. They're still E-rank awakeners, with C rank being the highest potential any of them can realistically hope for. A little later, the president's lackey confidently walks out after securing a lower D rank with A rank potential. Chen's roommates begin losing hope as student after student reaches D rank. Even the professors are stunned because students without real combat experience almost never break past E rank so easily. Then comes the moment everyone has been waiting for. The next name belongs to Gong Ting, the student council president and an actual guildmaster. Every eye follows him as he calmly enters the testing area. Everyone remembers that just 2 years ago he was only a lower D rank awakener, and since the Academy's all-time record is merely middle D rank, people wonder if he'll finally make history. Inside the demon realm, even the demon heart slowly opens its eyes in response to his presence. Although Gong Ting can't unleash every ounce of his strength, he has only one goal: to leave graduation as the greatest student the Academy has ever seen. The professors freeze when his potential begins glowing with a brilliant golden light, and moments later their disbelief turns into pure shock as Gong Ting is confirmed to have reached high D rank. But that isn't even the biggest surprise. His potential is revealed to be the Academy's very first S rank, instantly sending the entire venue into an uproar. His lackey proudly sings his praises non-stop, while even Chen's roommates can't hide their envy after witnessing history unfold before their eyes. The professors immediately agree that the administration must be notified at once. An S-rank candidate like this is priceless, someone the country must protect at all costs. As the youngest guild-affiliated student in the academy, Gong Ting is guaranteed to put the school's name all over the national headlines. Watching everything from above, Principal Yuanlong finally realizes Ling Yu already knew about Gong Ting's incredible potential, which explains why she attended in person. But then she drops an even bigger surprise. Gong Ting isn't actually the student she came here to watch. There's someone else she finds far more interesting. Right on cue, that mysterious student is called next, Chen. Seeing the opportunity, Jean immediately mocks him, sneering that he'd better not embarrass himself by ending up as E-rank trash like his roommates, or they'll all become the laughingstock of the ceremony. Long joins in, boasting that his own performance is about to leave everyone speechless. As the crowd eagerly watches, Chen calmly walks into the demon realm, and the demon heart instantly senses an overwhelming pressure the moment he approaches. While waiting, Chen reflects on the importance of this assessment. The graduation combat exam is the key to joining a powerful guild. Every participant must build a 10-person squad, and whichever team claims first place earns direct recruitment into the nation's elite Imperial Guild. At the same time, Jean proudly introduces another lower D-rank awakener to Gong Ting, declaring that their team is now complete. With every available D-rank student and even the president's younger brother on their side, he's convinced victory is already guaranteed. After all, the strongest students naturally gather together, leaving the weakest behind in a ruthless survival of the fittest competition where only the best survive. Time passes, yet Chen's result still refuses to appear. Long grows impatient, while the crowd quickly concludes that Chen must be so weak the system can't even detect him. Jian dismisses the remaining candidates as worthless and suggests Gong Ting leave early instead of wasting any more time. But just as they're about to walk away, the display suddenly flickers to life and reveals a high D-rank result, instantly throwing the entire audience into chaos. Shock spreads across every face as even the student council struggles to believe what they're seeing. Inside the testing chamber, Chen realizes he's simply checking how his level 10 base stats perform in his ordinary physical body. After confirming the high D-rank evaluation, he switches classes to Infernal Death King, the weakest class he has absorbed so far. In an instant, the reading jumps from high D all the way to mid-C rank, leaving everyone completely speechless. The council members begin questioning whether the machine is malfunctioning, while even the researchers suspect something is seriously wrong with the equipment. Then the demon heart suddenly becomes unstable, causing the results to fluctuate once again. Realizing what's happening, Chen calmly decides to activate an even stronger class, transforming into the Purgatory Ruasa. The moment Chen switches again, the demon heart begins trembling in fear as a violent storm rages outside the demon realm. Jian stares at the sky in utter confusion, convinced the heavens themselves are reacting as history is being rewritten, almost as if their dorm has produced a monster chosen by fate. Then, the impossible happens. Chen's potential flashes to S rank, leaving both the scientists and President Ting completely speechless. But before anyone can process it, a warning suddenly appears across the screen. Chen's potential has exceeded the system's maximum capacity and can no longer be measured. Jean is so overwhelmed that his mind practically crashes on the spot, looking like his soul is about to leave his body. As the testing system starts falling apart under the immense pressure, the scientists rush inside, terrified that the student might be injured. Instead, they stop dead in their tracks. The mighty demon heart has been reduced to nothing more than a shriveled raisin after literally burning itself out from being pushed far beyond its limits. Chen had apparently scared the poor thing to death. Without hesitation, he devours the ruined demon heart and gains 2 new abilities. the power to instantly see anyone's rank, and the instinct to detect nearby danger. When he steps back outside, he immediately notices everyone's ranks floating before his eyes. But one discovery catches his attention. Gong Ting's displayed potential is fake. His true ceiling is nothing more than an ordinary C rank. Meanwhile, the embarrassed scientists announce that the demon heart suffered what they jokingly describe as a heart attack from excessive strain, forcing the entire assessment to be suspended. Chen's unbelievable results are temporarily classified as a system error, and the data will be forwarded to higher authorities for a full investigation. The remaining students are instructed to return the next day after a replacement testing device is installed. On the way back, Chen's roommates can't stop celebrating, treating him like a living legend after the unbelievable spectacle he just created. Jean, however, is consumed by jealousy. He accuses Chen of being a fraud, and even demands compensation for destroying the machine and wasting everyone's time. Just as Chen is about to teach him a painful lesson, Ting steps in and immediately shuts Jean down, warning him not to disrespect one of his own classmates. The unexpected defense leaves Jean completely stunned. Ting then reaches out his hand and personally invites Chen to join his squad, confidently declaring that together they could achieve the highest score in academy history. Jean instantly panics. He knows someone would have to be removed from the team to make room for Chen, and that decision would certainly create problems. More importantly, everyone knows joining Ting's squad is practically a guaranteed ticket to first place, so Jean can't understand why Ting values Chen so highly when countless others couldn't buy their way onto the team even if they tried. Swallowing his pride, Jean reluctantly welcomes Chen and awkwardly places a hand on his shoulder, only for Chen to smack it away without hesitation. He bluntly says he has absolutely no interest in joining them. Jean immediately breaks into a cold sweat, while Ting silently watches the exchange. Furious, Jean reminds Chen that he's turning down the strongest team in the entire academy, but Chen simply turns around and walks away, saying their group is way too noisy and telling them never to bother him again. Jian is left boiling with rage after such a humiliating rejection, and the entire academy quickly explodes with rumors. Most students become convinced Chen intends to claim first place entirely on his own after revealing his incredible rank, while his roommates thoroughly enjoy watching Ting and Jean suffer such a public embarrassment. Despite everything, Ting remains calm and tells Jian not to interfere if Chen has chosen his own path. Watching from above, Principal Yuan can't help feeling disappointed, because he genuinely hoped those two prodigies would join forces and shatter the academy's records together. Ling Yu, however, finds the situation far more entertaining. She points out that Ting was raised in privilege and has always gotten his way, so he'll inevitably interpret Chen's refusal as an open declaration of war. And once his pride is wounded, he's not someone who lets things go. Jean continues grumbling that Chen is only arrogant because of a testing error that mistakenly labeled him as C rank, but Ting quietly admits the result might actually be genuine. As unlikely as it seems, he refuses to risk anyone stealing his position at the top. Jian argues that Chen is just an ordinary student with no real combat experience, unlike the elite student council members who secretly trained inside demon realms. He proposes teaching Chen a lesson for his disrespect, but Ting immediately cuts him off, asking whether he really believes the student council president would stoop that low. Jian quickly apologizes for speaking out of line. Ting then cancels their karaoke plans and casually tells Jian to deal with things however he wants, making it crystal clear that whatever happens afterward has nothing to do with him. Jian understands the hidden permission immediately. Not long afterward, one of his informants reports that Chen has already left school and headed home without even stopping for food. Seeing the perfect opportunity, Jian becomes excited at the thought of cornering Chen outside campus where no one can interfere. Meanwhile, as Chen crosses the street, memories from his previous life suddenly resurface. He recalls how an elite guild once attempted to conquer a demon realm in the Sti region, only to encounter a terrifying new monster known as Wrath. The creature effortlessly annihilated the entire top-ranked team before escaping into the human world and causing catastrophic destruction. Although the details have faded with time, Chen is determined to locate that same demon realm before history repeats itself. To make that happen, he first needs money. His destination is the Mithril Monster Exchange Center, a place he knows will eventually become the country's largest trading hub. In this world, an Awakener's true strength depends heavily on the quality of their weapons and equipment, making the exchange center the heart of that economy. For Chen, though, it's simply the fastest way to fund his much bigger plans. He walks inside and casually places several monster fangs on the counter. The broker carefully examines them before suspiciously asking how a mere student managed to obtain such materials. Chen calmly replies that they came from a monster he defeated himself. The broker admits he's never seen fangs like these before, but his assistant immediately recognizes them as the fangs of an E-class Songan beast, explaining that they're valuable crafting materials capable of producing E-grade weapons or being processed into specialized powders. The broker rudely cuts his assistant off, tosses the fang back onto the table, and dismisses it as worthless because it's only E-grade. He boasts that their store caters exclusively to VIP Awakeners, dealing only in D-grade equipment or higher, then smugly claims that's exactly why he didn't recognize such low-level materials. Secretly, though, he's frustrated that wealthy customers have been scarce lately and figures wasting time on a poor student won't help his chances of getting promoted. Without another thought, he dumps the transaction onto his assistant, Lee, and walks away. Lee, on the other hand, politely hands Chen an envelope of cash and asks if there's anything else he needs. Inside, Chen finds 18000, more than enough to cover his rent for now. He then casually pulls out the glowing greatsword he obtained from the Purgatory Rakshasa, instantly catching Lee's attention. Although she's never seen a weapon like it before, she guesses it has to be at least B grade, maybe even a grade. Hearing that, the broker laughs outright. He arrogantly points out that A-grade weapons are worth around 1 million, and claims that despite working there for years, he's never even laid eyes on one. Right then, the shop owner walks in and calmly corrects them both. The weapon isn't A-grade, or even B-grade. The broker immediately starts praising his boss's judgment, convinced the owner is about to expose Chen's bluff. Instead, the owner explains that the blade came from the Purgatory lands, and is, in fact, an S-grade weapon. Both the broker and Lee freeze in complete disbelief. Without hesitation, the owner warmly shakes Chen's hand, welcomes him as an honored VIP, and personally escorts him into the private VIP lounge, inviting him to ask for anything he needs. Everything has unfolded exactly the way Chen expected. Once they're seated, the guildmaster, Qingji, asks how much Chen wants for the sword. Chen calmly answers, 1 million, catching the green-haired boss completely off guard. Qingji immediately tells him the weapon could easily sell for tens of millions because of how incredibly rare it is. Chen, however, explains that he has no intention of selling it. He simply wants to use it as collateral for a 1 million loan for 1 month. That answer surprises Qingji even more, making him realize the young man sitting across from him is far smarter than he first appeared. Chen continues by saying he'll repay the principal within 30 days and cover the interest the following month. Before responding, Qingji asks Lee to step outside so they can discuss business privately. Once the room is empty, he reveals that he already knows Chen attends National Awakener University and that graduation is only 30 days away. He also knows the champion of the graduation assessment receives exactly 1 million in prize money. Looking Chen straight in the eyes, he asks whether he's truly confident he'll finish in first place. Qingji quickly pieces everything together, realizing Chen desperately needs money and would never risk an S-grade weapon unless he had no better choice. In the end, he makes an even more generous offer, lending Chen 1.5 million immediately with 0 interest. Reaching out his hand, he smiles and says he hopes this is only the beginning of a long partnership. Chen is genuinely caught off guard by the unexpected generosity. Qingji assures him that nothing discussed in this room will ever leave it. In return, he asks only one thing, that whenever Chen has valuable items to trade in the future, he brings them to his guild first. Chen can't help admiring the man's insight. Qingji understood everything almost instantly, yet never once tried to cheat him. In that moment, Chen finally understands why this man will grow into one of the most influential guild leaders in the future. He gladly shakes Qingji's hand, knowing he'll need powerful allies if he ever hopes to defeat the Demon Lord. The contract is signed shortly afterward, and the money is transferred into Chen's account almost immediately. Qingji then offers to lend him a weapon for the graduation exam, since he just put his own up as collateral. While the guild doesn't possess any S-rank equipment, it has plenty of top-tier A-grade weapons available. Chen simply smiles and says there's no need, before summoning the second greatsword he obtained earlier, leaving everyone in the room completely speechless. After saying his goodbyes, Chen heads out, while Qingji immediately promotes the pink-haired employee to supervise VIP clients as a reward for bringing in such an extraordinary customer. Just before leaving for good, Chen suddenly remembers something he forgot to buy and heads back toward the counter. A few hours later, he's waiting alone at a bus stop, recalling the hardships of his previous life. Back then, people constantly looked down on him. He worked endless jobs just to survive, and he and his sister barely scraped by every month. His sister, Yuan, had once been accepted into her dream university but gave up the opportunity, claiming it was simply too far away. In truth, she couldn't bear adding another financial burden to her brother. Back in the present, Chen wonders why she hasn't arrived yet and starts searching the area. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls him an idiot for looking near the entrance instead of the exit. Yuan appears, dragging an oversized suitcase behind her while complaining that paying rent has left them broke once again. Chen can only stare in stunned silence. It's been 7 long years since he last saw her. When she tells him to help with her luggage and gets no response, she waves her hand in front of his face to snap him back to reality. Instead, Chen suddenly rushes forward and wraps her in a tight hug, completely catching her off guard. After struggling for a few awkward moments, she pokes him in the ribs until he finally lets go, grumbling that he almost squeezed the life out of her. She jokes that he's been acting strangely lately and wonders if the girl he likes finally rejected him, but Chen simply brushes the question aside. As the siblings walk home together, Yuan happily chatters about her exams while Chen quietly listens to every word, silently promising himself that no matter what happens, he'll protect her this time and never allow tragedy to steal her away again. Elsewhere, Inside a dark alley, Jian and several thugs patiently wait for their prey. After confirming that Chen will pass through the area, Jian orders everyone to stay hidden until the perfect moment to launch their ambush. Wearing a twisted grin, he swears he'll make Chen pay for humiliating him. One thug nervously asks whether they'll get into trouble if things get out of hand, but the Cloud Assassin brushes the concern aside. He admits he originally intended to teach Chen only a small lesson, yet after everything that happened today, his anger has completely boiled over. Reliving the embarrassment in his mind, Jian orders his men not to have all the fun without him, proudly calling himself the Academy's greatest Cloud Assassin while imagining the look of despair on Chen's face. Meanwhile, as Chen and Yuan continue walking side by side, she notices he's been unusually quiet and wonders if the upcoming graduation exams are getting to him. Then she laughs it off herself, teasing that a weakling like him shouldn't overthink things. Smiling, she reminds her brother of the very advice he always gave her. Keep moving forward, do your best, and leave the rest to fate. Trying to cheer Chen up, Yuan suddenly starts singing an encouraging song as they walk into a quiet alley. Chen can't help smiling, touched that she noticed his change in mood so quickly, even though she still has no idea he's awakened or that he's no longer struggling financially. When he confidently assures her he's fine, she rolls her eyes and assumes it's just his stubborn male pride talking, secretly thinking her older brother is finally starting to grow up. Unbeknownst to them, Jian's gang is following close behind. One of the thugs quietly reports that Chen is with a girl, and Jian's face lights up when he realizes the alley has no security cameras, making it the perfect place for an ambush. The instant Chen senses their malicious intent, he recognizes them as the same student council punks. Calmly pulling out a pair of wireless earbuds, he places them in Yuan's ears and tells her to listen to a song he's recently grown fond of. She's surprised since he almost never listens to music, but she happily goes along with it, hoping to understand him a little better. As the music begins, Chen slowly turns around and fixes the approaching thugs with an icy glare. The moment they charge, the fight erupts. Chen immediately switches to his lightning class, and memories of losing his sister 7 years ago flood back into his mind. Now that fate has given her back to him, there's no way he'll let anyone threaten her again. Like a bolt of lightning, he explodes forward, launching the first thug through the air with a devastating kick. The rest instantly break into a cold sweat. Chen's fists crackle with power as he drops 3 enemies in rapid succession before smashing the 4th with a crushing knee strike. One desperate thug swings at him, only for Chen to casually catch his arm and snap it like dry spaghetti before driving a brutal punch straight into his face. Watching his men get demolished one after another, Jian stands frozen in disbelief, unable to understand how Chen became this powerful. Chen never slows down, cutting through the remaining thugs until he finally stands before the Cloud Assassin himself. Jian desperately convinces himself he's still the strongest assassin around and declares he can't possibly lose. Chen answers with a single devastating punch that sends him flying, then instantly closes the distance and unleashes a relentless barrage that blasts several teeth from Jian's mouth. The assassin tumbles across the ground before slamming hard into a wall. Looking up, he sees Chen staring down at him like a demon. Chen coldly reminds the pathetic thug that he'd already warned him to stay away, then asks whether someone so brainless can't even understand simple human language. Jian is so badly beaten that he can't even feel his legs anymore. With more than half the bones in his body shattered, he finally realizes he picked a fight with the worst possible person and can only stammer out a pitiful apology. Chen silences him immediately, grabbing his collar and pressing a cold dagger against his face. In that instant, Jian sees something terrifying in Chen's eyes. There isn't even the slightest hesitation to kill. This isn't the gaze of an ordinary high school student. He can't help wondering what kind of hell could have transformed someone into a monster like this. With chilling calm, Chen tells him to remember every word if he wants to avoid repeating tonight's nightmare. If any of them ever try something this stupid again, he'll tear them apart without mercy. Then he delivers one final warning that freezes everyone to the core. If they so much as come anywhere near his sister again, he'll hunt down every person they care about one by one until none of them remain. His message delivered, Chen casually drops the dagger and walks back to Yuan before the song in her earbuds has even finished. Meanwhile, Yuan has been completely overwhelmed by the heartbreaking lyrics, crying quietly as she wonders what her brother must have gone through to change so much over the years. She even blames herself, fearing that maybe the support she gave him back then simply wasn't enough. Wiping away her tears, she spins around, ready to scold him, only to freeze the instant she notices what he's holding. Right before her eyes is the gold-plated holographic magic pen she's always dreamed of owning. Her face instantly turns bright red with excitement as she realizes Chen actually bought her the newest model, an item worth more than their monthly rent. Her adorable reaction melts his heart. It's obvious she doesn't want to give it back, even though she knows they can barely afford to survive. Quietly clenching his fist behind his back, Chen vows that in this life he'll protect that smile no matter what and make sure she reaches her dream university. Back home, Yuan happily spends hours drawing glowing holograms in the air with her new pen, while Chen quietly enjoys a bowl of the homemade ramen she prepared, genuinely happy to see how much she loves his gift. Even so, reality catches up with her, and she worries about him spending so much money when next month's rent hasn't even arrived yet. Chen simply grins and casually reveals that the rent for the entire year has already been paid. He claims a small business venture with a friend has been making excellent money lately, but Yuan immediately gives him a suspicious look, clearly unconvinced by such a perfectly timed explanation. Still, she chooses not to press the issue. After all, she can't even remember the last time she saw her brother smile so openly. Gently patting his shoulder, she tells him that whatever he's doing, he just needs to promise not to push himself too hard. Elsewhere, inside a quiet aquarium, President Ting shares shocking news with his cousin. The city's top doctors have confirmed that their star assassin is critically injured beyond recovery, with more than half the bones in his body shattered beyond repair. The fact that Jian challenged Qin was surprising enough, but the horrifying condition he was left in is almost impossible to believe. His cousin reacts with complete indifference, caring only that their team has now lost one of its elite graduating members. Ting is just as ruthless, calmly saying they'll probably perform even better without deadweight dragging them down. At that moment, their uncle, Director Gong Xuan, the Academy's Director of Employment, joins the conversation. He calmly announces that his investigation into everything that happened during the ranking assessment has finally been completed, and the evidence leaves absolutely no room for doubt. Director Gong Xuan calmly reveals the conclusion of his investigation, confirming beyond any doubt that Chen's true rank actually surpasses President Ting's. The stunning news catches the Academy's former #1 completely off guard. His uncle then gives him a serious warning, explaining that Ting's father has personally arranged for a vice chairman of the Alliance to observe the upcoming graduation combat exam. That means Ting absolutely must become the center of attention. As insurance, the director even suggests adding his favorite niece, the green-haired girl, to Ting's squad to guarantee first place. But the proud student council president rejects the idea without the slightest hesitation. He arrogantly insists he never came close to revealing his real strength during the ranking assessment, and confidently declares he'll crush the entire academy on his own. Meanwhile, back at the dorms, Chen finishes another brutal training session, running 100 meters while carrying an extremely heavy backpack before washing up. Every ounce of his focus is fixed on one goal: winning the 1,000,000 prize in the graduation exam. It's his only chance to honor the agreement he made with Qingji of the Mithril Guild and build a long-term partnership with them. With only a few weeks remaining, Chen lies down to sleep, but instead of resting, he sends his consciousness into the demonic realm to continue training. Before him stands the towering Void Tower left behind by Demon King Lu. Without hesitation, he climbs the endless staircase toward its entrance. During the Academy assessment, his Gravehound King class only reached a respectable mid-C rank, while his Abyssal Fiend class was so overwhelmingly powerful that it completely broke the Academy's evaluation system, leaving even the Demon Heart incapable of measuring its true potential. That leaves him with only one way to judge the rest of his classes: unlock the Void Tower and test their power in real combat. The instant he steps inside, Chen expects a dangerous trial, but what greets him is beyond anything he imagined. He finds himself transported into a bizarre dimension, standing atop a massive white planet floating through space. The moment he takes a single step, his knees buckle beneath him. Gravity here is 10 times stronger than Earth's, crushing every muscle and bone in his body. Behind him, the tower entrance disappears completely, making it obvious that defeating the floor boss is the only way out. Before he can even adjust to the overwhelming pressure, a phantom lion prowling nearby launches its attack. Left with no choice, Chen immediately switches to his lightning class. He barely dodges the beast's pounce and drives his blade into its shoulder, but missing the vital spot leaves the monster largely unharmed. He quickly realizes that the intense gravity has slowed every movement he makes. The lion easily overpowers him, slamming him to the ground before lunging to bite his arm. The encounter proves just how perfectly these monsters have adapted to their environment. Allowing the beast to bite down for a split second, Chen instantly changes into his Abyssal Fiend class. The transformation trades some speed for tremendous strength and endurance, making it far better suited for close combat under extreme gravity. The battle immediately turns around. Rakshasa's gravity manipulation becomes terrifyingly effective in an environment where gravity is already 10 times normal. Multiplying that force even further crushes the phantom lion into the ground. No matter how fiercely it roars, Chen refuses to let up until the monster is completely defeated. Exhausted, he collapses onto the ground to catch his breath before Gluttony rewards him with a level-up notification. At the same time, he learns that every class possesses its own star rating, which determines how much of a stat boost it grants after switching. Right now, Purgatory Rakshasa has the highest rating among all the classes he's obtained. Even so, defeating a single B-rank Phantom Lion nearly cost him his life, making it painfully obvious just how far he still is from reaching the true power of an SS-rank class. To make matters worse, Gluttony doesn't even allow him to devour the monster, leaving him frustrated. And since the exit never appears, he immediately realizes that lion wasn't even the floor boss. Suddenly, an enormous gate slowly creaks open behind him. Dozens of glowing eyes emerge from the darkness, and Chen's heart sinks. All the effort it took to defeat one monster was only the beginning. In the next instant, countless B-rank beasts pour out of the gate, attacking from every direction. Only then does Chen truly understand Rakshasa's warning. The tower was never meant to be an easy path to power. It is a place filled with endless pain, where survival itself is the only way to grow stronger. Chen abruptly jolts awake, gasping for air as if he'd just escaped a living nightmare. Around him, his roommates continue sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that he just experienced the agony of being ripped apart by countless monsters. At that moment, Chen finally realizes the Void Tower isn't some shortcut to rapid growth. It's the beginning of a long, brutal road where every ounce of strength must be earned through suffering. Several weeks pass, and graduation exam day finally arrives. The academy is packed with VIP guests eager to witness the next generation of Awakeners. New rules are announced, requiring every 10-person squad to include at least one high E-rank student. Once team formation begins, students are informed that everyone's ranks are now publicly visible, making recruitment much easier. As the rankings are displayed from highest to lowest, Ma Long suddenly notices something strange. Chen also stares at the screen in confusion, after discovering his own name sitting all the way at the bottom of the list. The entire venue falls silent as everyone struggles to understand how someone who displayed such incredible strength could possibly rank dead last. Jealous students immediately seize the opportunity to mock him, claiming his previous result must have been nothing more than a testing error. Even so, none of them can deny the obvious truth. Whether the ranking is accurate or not, having Chen on their team would dramatically increase their chances of victory. As the crowd whispers that Chen must be regretting turning down President Ting's invitation, the council president remains completely silent. The real mastermind behind Chen's suspiciously low ranking is none other than Ting's uncle, Director Gong Xuan. His scheme is simple. If Chen is ranked last, no one will recruit him, and without a full team, he'll never even get the chance to challenge the student council. Earlier that day, nearly the entire class had been begging Ting to let them join his squad, desperately trying to flatter him, but he coldly rejected them all, explaining that his team only had room for one final member. Now, every other student has already formed a party, leaving only Chen's dorm behind. Ma Long sighs in frustration, saying they've asked almost everyone, yet nobody is willing to team up with them. With only 4 members, they're automatically disqualified from the graduation exam. He also points out how suspicious it is that Chen's ranking suddenly dropped to the very bottom, making him appear unqualified. Since every team is required to include at least one high E-rank Awakener, it feels obvious that someone deliberately targeted them. The graduation exam is every student's best opportunity to prove themselves and earn invitations from top guilds. Because the number of monsters scales with the size of each team, having extra members isn't actually an advantage. That's exactly why nobody wants to recruit weaker students, who are seen as nothing but dead weight. To make matters worse, the 3 lowest-ranked students all happen to be from Chen's dorm, leaving them completely isolated. Another student approaches Zuo and tries to persuade him to abandon his roommates, pointing out that their group only needs one more person, and asking whether he really wants to miss the graduation exam by sticking with a bunch of weaklings. Chen immediately realizes that if things continue this way, all 4 of them could lose their chance to compete entirely. But the dorm leader refuses without hesitation, declaring he'll never abandon his roommates. The other group storms off in frustration, though Zuo still warns them not to underestimate people so easily. Looking over the remaining student list, Ma Long points out that nearly every team has already been finalized. They only need one more person, yet nobody is willing to join. Chen's eyes drift toward Director Gong Xuan, and he immediately notices the shared family name between him and President Ting. It doesn't take long for him to piece everything together, so this is all the director's doing. Amused more than angry, Chen wonders if they're really so afraid of him that they'd resort to tricks like this. Refusing to give up, he boldly declares that he'll participate in the graduation exam no matter what. Lightning erupts around his body as he releases his aura without restraint, stunning both the officials and even his own roommates. Chen remembers that every Awakener Academy follows one special rule designed to encourage competition. Any student can challenge another at any time. While it might seem like simple showmanship, it's actually an accepted way of proving one's strength and attracting capable teammates. Most people would avoid such a risky confrontation, but Chen knows someone like President Ting could never back down from a public challenge. If he defeats the Academy's strongest student, everyone will be lining up to join his team. Just then, a beautiful girl suddenly appears at the entrance and calmly asks Chen if he still needs another teammate, because she'd also like to participate in this year's graduation exam. The vice president immediately points out that she already reached D rank back in middle school, making it clear she won't be a burden. Chen's roommates nearly lose their minds, wondering how he somehow convinced such a gorgeous girl to join them. Both Ting and Jean stare in complete confusion, while Director Gong Xuan almost spits out his drink. The students quickly begin gossiping, wondering why an exchange student would voluntarily join the academy's weakest team. Although few people know who she really is, rumors claim she comes from the Saint Kingdom. Furious, Director Gong immediately objects, insisting that exchange students aren't allowed to participate in the academy's graduation exam. He argues that Ling has never taken an official rank assessment at their school and therefore doesn't meet the requirements. Before anyone can respond, the principal suddenly appears. Gong is visibly startled by the old man's arrival. The principal calmly agrees that the director is technically correct before asking Ling why she'd want to participate when she'll only be studying there temporarily. Chen is equally shocked, wondering how someone from the warrior class could seemingly teleport without anyone noticing. The principal explains that allowing Ling to compete would indeed be unfair to the other students, and she quietly accepts his reasoning. At that moment, Chen realizes he can't even sense the ranks of either the principal or Ling, causing him to break into a cold sweat. Director Gong finally regains his confidence and backs up the principal, arguing that no school can function without clear rules. But then the principal suddenly changes direction. He reminds everyone that the academy exists to nurture awakeners and help them achieve greatness. The graduation exam isn't just another tradition. It's one of the most important moments in every student's life. He asks a simple but devastating question. If students lose that opportunity because of last-minute rule changes, who will take responsibility for their future? Director Gong immediately starts sweating, wondering if the principal has already uncovered everything. He can't help suspecting that the old man is deliberately protecting Chen. Deciding it's wiser to retreat, he convinces himself that Ting's elite team should still win regardless. Bowing respectfully, Director Gong apologizes and admits they failed to consider how the current rules could unfairly prevent some students from growing. He then announces a revised policy. To ensure fairness, even lower-ranked teams and squads with fewer than 5 members will now be allowed to participate. The 4 roommates immediately celebrate after finally securing their chance to compete. Watching from the back, the principal quietly remarks that Ling seems unusually interested in Chen. On one side stands President Ting, leading the academy's strongest team. On the other stands Chen, commanding what everyone considers the weakest squad. The old man smiles, genuinely curious to see which devil cave each team will choose and how many points they'll ultimately earn. Moments later, the official announces that every captain may now select their dungeon. Almost instantly, his tablet lets out a notification. One team has already made its choice. The entire venue falls silent when they discover that the first selection belongs to Chen. Even his own roommates panic, desperately begging him to change his decision and asking whether he realizes what he's just done. Chen, however, says nothing, keeping his eyes fixed on the screen. In the graduation exam, every team enters a devil cave and earns points by defeating monsters, while bonus points are awarded for defeating the dungeon lord and clearing the cave as quickly as possible. Before the graduation exam begins, everyone is reminded that the final score depends on the difficulty of the dungeon each team chooses. Clearing an F-rank dungeon can earn up to 75 points, while an E-rank dungeon is worth as much as 100. The team with the highest score will be recruited directly by the Imperial Guild, and the tournament's top individual will walk away with a reward of 1,000,000 Wa. The students quickly bring up the Academy's legendary record of 90 points, set by the current leader of the Imperial Guild. Considering that even an E-rank dungeon normally requires at least 3 capable D-rank fighters, many believe Ting's elite squad is finally strong enough to break that record. Then a notification suddenly flashes across the screen, announcing that someone has already chosen a devil cave. The room falls silent when everyone realizes Chen selected a D-rank dungeon. Since no one has ever successfully cleared one before, the entire class assumes he must have made a mistake. Ma Long asks if Chen has completely lost his mind, while the dorm leader nearly panics on the spot. The group's strategist desperately tries to convince Chen to change his mind, but Chen calmly explains that this decision wasn't impulsive. He thought it through very carefully. Moments later, another notification appears as President Ting also locks in the D-rank dungeon. His teammates immediately approve the choice, officially confirming their participation, and the classroom erupts with excitement, even though Ting's group tries to act like it's no big deal. A blonde goth girl mocks Chen for pretending to be fearless just to get attention, while another student confidently predicts that his weak teammates will never agree and the team will collapse before the exam even starts. But Ma Long studies Chen's expression and realizes he's never been more serious. Wondering when his timid friend became so fearless, he finally chooses to trust him and presses the confirm button. Yo follows without hesitation, deciding he has nothing left to lose, and the dorm leader, annoyed that everyone acted before him, quickly confirms as well. Just like that, their 4-man squad officially qualifies for the graduation exam. Looking at his roommates, Chen sincerely apologizes for dragging them into such a dangerous challenge, explaining that he chose the D-rank dungeon because he wants to become the tournament's highest scorer. Even so, he promises they'll climb to the top together. The moment those words leave his mouth, Ting rises to his feet and coldly declares that first place belongs to him alone. Chen immediately turns to face him as Ting releases an intimidating aura, announcing that there can only be one strongest student in the academy. Watching from the back, Ling is surprised because it's the first time she's ever seen Ting reveal such powerful emotions. The rivalry between the two prodigies is now impossible to ignore. The principal, however, can't help smiling, impressed by the student's fearless ambition. Ling isn't nearly as optimistic. She points out that even a C-rank awakener couldn't clear a D-rank dungeon alone. While conquering one would award an incredible 150 points, the difficulty is simply overwhelming, especially with Chen's current teammates. The principal agrees that with only 1 month left before the exam, it's almost impossible for them to improve enough, but he still quietly hopes they'll exceed everyone's expectations. 2 weeks later, Chen's team lies exhausted across the training grounds after another brutal workout. Ma Long finally asks why they're suffering through endless physical conditioning while every other student is comfortably using simulation training. Chen has pushed them through one punishing exercise after another, leaving everyone ready to collapse. Chen calmly explains that combat simulations aren't nearly as useful as people believe. The first time someone enters a real devil cave, panic takes over, and only instinct keeps them alive. That's why he's focusing on building their bodies, increasing their speed, and sharpening their reactions. The ideal training would be fighting how ordinary people are ever supposed to overcome that gap. Chen answers without hesitation. If they can earn a place in the Imperial Guild, they'll have the power to change the system itself. The graduation exam is their one chance to surpass the privileged elite, and Chen swears he'll do whatever it takes to fulfill that dream and lead them to victory. As the days slip away, his determination only grows stronger. With half a month remaining, he enters the Void Tower every single night, repeatedly throwing himself against the Phantom Lions. Every battle pushes him to the brink of death, but no matter how many times they tear him apart, he refuses to give up. 5 days before the exam, his roommates are already training with everything they have, yet Chen has taken things to an entirely different level. His routine is so brutal that ordinary training now feels like little more than a warm-up. 2 days before the competition, Ting is still training relentlessly as well, but Chen's growth is even more astonishing. He can now confidently battle an entire pack of Phantom Lions under crushing gravity. Blood stains his face, but he's never looked more prepared for what's ahead. Finally, graduation day arrives. Small drones hover beside each team, guiding them toward the exam site as Chen and his roommates walk in wearing matching uniforms that make them look surprisingly sharp. Once every student fastens their wristband, the graduation exam officially begins. Outside the testing grounds, the academy principal warmly greets Gong Lin, President Ting's father and one of the co-founders of the Imperial Guild. The students can't stop staring at him, treating him like a living legend. Their excitement reaches another level when a luxurious white limousine pulls up moments later. A red-haired man calmly steps out, and the crowd instantly recognizes him as Carl Cavendish, vice chairman of the World Guild Alliance. Someone of his status almost never visits a place like this, leaving everyone speechless. Inside the VIP room, the director reports that 23 teams have chosen F-rank demon layers, several selected E-rank layers, and only 2 teams dared to challenge D-rank layers. The Alliance Secretary, Secret, is visibly surprised by such a dangerous decision. Normally, even experienced D-rank awakeners prepare extensively before entering a D-rank dungeon, so she questions whether the academy truly considered the student's safety. The director calmly reassures her that every participant fully understood the risks before making their decision. He explains that awakeners without real combat experience often struggle even against ordinary F-rank monsters, while the true danger always comes from the dungeon boss, whose strength far exceeds that of the regular monsters. Many teams fail simply because they can't overcome the boss. E-rank dungeons are even more unforgiving, where ordinary monsters are already as powerful as an F-rank boss. It's a harsh reality that students usually learn firsthand. Concerned, Secret asks what protection exists if the situation becomes life-threatening. The director confidently explains that the academy takes student safety very seriously. An Imperial Guild warrior is stationed outside every dungeon, ready to intervene immediately if necessary, and every student's wristband can instantly teleport them to safety the moment they choose to surrender or their life is placed in genuine danger. Even after hearing all the academy's safety precautions, the Alliance Secretary still isn't convinced. She seriously doubts any students are capable of conquering a D-rank dungeon, and quietly wonders how long those 2 teams will survive before being forced to retreat. Director Gong, on the other hand, confidently predicts that the young E-rank students will come running out in tears. Meanwhile, deep inside the D-rank dungeon, surrounded by towering frozen trees, Chen's teammates are already on edge. Anyone would be after seeing the horrifying ghost monkey bats, creatures that look like a twisted mix of bats and monkeys. Chen immediately warns everyone that these monsters attack in the blink of an eye, so they need to stay alert at all times. Just as he finishes speaking, an entire flock dives toward them. To their surprise, the boys barely manage to dodge the lightning-fast assault. They're still celebrating the fact that they avoided an attack from D-rank monsters when they suddenly notice something unbelievable. Chen is calmly standing nearby with a sword crackling with lightning while piles of dead ghost monkey bats surround him. Without even looking back, he tells his teammates to focus on surviving because they aren't strong enough yet and to leave the rest to him. Moments later, another ghost monkey bat lunges at the group, but they narrowly evade it once again. Sung Shu suddenly realizes why Chen forced them through those brutal reflex and speed drills. Everything had been preparation for this exact moment. Ju grits his teeth. He'd spent all this time proudly calling himself the dorm king, yet now he's the one relying on the quiet roommate he barely understood. Meanwhile, Chen tears through the remaining ghost monkey bats with terrifying efficiency. The monsters rush him one after another, only to be cut down before they can even react. Watching from a distance, the dorm leader can't help thinking that Ma Long's stories hadn't done Chen justice. This isn't the fighting style of an ordinary student. It looks more like a veteran soldier who's survived countless battles. As the fight drags on, a small spark of jealousy begins creeping into Ju's heart over Chen's growing reputation. Suddenly, another ghost monkey bat appears behind the group. Ju barely blocks its attack before grabbing one of its legs with his flaming hands and shouting at everyone to stop acting like dead weight. Chen isn't the only one whose future depends on graduating. His unexpected determination catches the others completely off guard. Inspired by his resolve, Shangzu immediately casts Vine Lock, successfully binding the monster in place. But the ghost monkey bat tears free almost instantly and kicks Zuo away. Ma Long follows up with Frostbite Breeze, slowing the creature down just enough for everyone to coordinate their attacks. Working together, they finally pin it down for a brief moment and yell for the Dorm King to finish it. Ju charges up a powerful flame bullet and lands a direct hit, only to discover it barely burns more than a few hairs. He fires again and again, but the monster simply refuses to fall. By now, Shangzu and Ma Long are completely exhausted. Realizing there's no room to hold back anymore, Ju gathers every ounce of strength he has and unleashes one massive burst of flames. A violent explosion engulfs the battlefield. When the smoke finally clears, nothing remains except the monster's charred skeleton. The drone immediately announces that the team has successfully defeated a D-rank ghost monkey bat. The three boys collapse onto the ground, completely drained but overflowing with excitement. They actually defeated a D-rank monster through teamwork alone. Chen walks over, pleasantly surprised, and they immediately ask whether he saw everything. The defeated monster leaves behind a single finger bone as loot, and Zuo quickly tries to act cool, casually claiming the fight was easier than expected. Chen smiles and congratulates them anyway. Soon afterward, the drone announces that every monster inside the Devil Cave has been eliminated. Watching the live broadcast, Director Gong is left utterly speechless. He can hardly believe that a group of supposedly weak students with no real combat experience just cleared a D-rank dungeon. The rest of the staff remain equally stunned. At the same time, Vice Chairman Carl Candish's assistant quietly praises Chen's incredible performance, remarking that the young man's aura reminds him of an old friend. Carl repeats Chen's name to himself and decides to remember it, instantly making Gong Lin and Director Gong visibly uneasy. Hoping to shift everyone's attention away from Chen, Director Gong quickly changes the subject to President Ting's team inside the other D-rank dungeon, pointing out that they've already reached the middle section. Carl's assistant praises their flawless coordination, saying they fight more like a professional guild raid party than a team of students. Carl smiles in agreement and remarks that this year's graduating class is far more impressive than previous ones. Director Gong quietly tells himself that the real competition is only beginning. The best is still ahead. Inside the toxic vine cavern, Ting's squad is suddenly surrounded by poisonous mushroom monsters bursting out from every direction. One teammate strums her guitar to cast a decay spell, while a star mage gathers all the monsters together using an attraction skill to create the perfect opening. As soon as the setup is complete, Ting charges forward. With a single swing, he unleashes Blazing Sky Sword, instantly blasting the entire pack apart. His teammates casually point out that these monsters are exactly the same ones they trained against before the exam. Since they already know every attack pattern, the battle feels effortless. They even realize the Academy must have prepared this dungeon specifically for them. With advantages like these, victory seems inevitable, and the team begins celebrating long before the exam is over, convinced that first place already belongs to them. Meanwhile, on the deepest floor of the frozen forest, Chen's group finally reaches the dungeon boss after somehow surviving the entire journey. In the middle of a frozen wasteland stands a gigantic ghost ape calmly eating its prey. The Dorm King immediately starts sweating. Just looking at the monster is enough to tell him a single hit would probably kill him. The ghost ape slowly turns its gaze toward the weakest member of the party. Ma Long lets out a terrified scream, and that one sound is enough to trigger the beast. It launches itself toward them in one terrifying leap. While the others desperately run for their lives, Chen charges straight at it without the slightest hesitation. He leaps directly into the giant ape's face with a crushing kick, follows up with a relentless barrage of punches that sends the enormous body bouncing through the air, and finishes the battle by tearing the monster apart with overwhelming force. His teammates can only stand there in complete disbelief after witnessing such a one-sided massacre. Even after winning, Chen feels disappointed because D-rank monsters simply don't provide enough experience anymore, and their loot isn't much better. Then his teammates suddenly shout with excitement after discovering several massive mana stones hidden inside the hollow trunk where the giant ghost ape had made its nest. Chen's teammates are thrilled when they discover several giant mana stones hidden inside the hollow tree trunk and immediately rush over to grab them. Chen instantly realizes something is wrong and yells for everyone to stop, but he's already too late. A blinding flash erupts from the trunk, and within seconds the entire area is swallowed by solid ice. Shangzhu, the dorm leader, and even the camera drones are frozen in place. Up in the VIP room, the live broadcast suddenly goes black. Director Gong quietly smiles, as if he had been expecting this all along. He knows powerful monsters love setting traps, and believes it was only a matter of time before Chen's inexperienced team fell for one. Vice Chairman Carl Cavendish immediately frowns with concern, but the director pretends to sympathize, suggesting they should withdraw Chen's team immediately. The principal refuses. He calmly points out that none of the students are in immediate danger because their wristbands will automatically activate if their health falls too low, and no one has chosen to surrender. As far as he's concerned, only the students themselves have the right to decide when they're done fighting. Back inside the dungeon, Ma Long shivers violently in the freezing air. Out of everyone, he's the only one who escaped being frozen thanks to his class's natural resistance to ice magic. Then, a chilling laugh echoes through the forest. Looking up, he finds a skeletal ice monster staring directly at him. He instantly recognizes it from the monster compendium. The Bone King of Remains, a C-rank Lord-class cloud mage capable of manipulating ice and snow for both offense and defense. Worse still, it's infamous for enjoying the slow torture of its victims. Realizing the frozen mana stones were nothing more than bait, Ma Long immediately turns and runs. He knows there's no chance of defeating a C-rank lord by himself. Desperate to free Chen before it's too late, he rushes toward the frozen ice block, but an icy spear suddenly pierces straight through his leg. The Bone King laughs cruelly as Ma Long's wristband warns him that his leg has suffered critical damage and offers to teleport him out of the exam. He refuses without hesitation. Chen is still their only hope. Ignoring the pain, he struggles forward, only for another ice shard to tear through his arm before he can break Chen free. The Bone King watches with twisted amusement while the wristband issues another warning, reporting severe injuries, a dangerously elevated heart rate, and once again offering him the chance to quit. Ma Long refuses again. Instead, memories begin flooding back. All his life, he'd run away whenever things became difficult, allowing people to ignore him, bully him, and laugh at him. But after everything he and his friends had sacrificed to reach this point, he refuses to repeat that mistake. Believing this is his final chance to change his future, he forces himself back onto his feet, uses every last bit of strength he has left, and finally manages to shatter the ice-imprisoning Chen. At that exact moment, the Bone King unleashes a storm of deadly icicles toward him. Just as the attack is about to strike, Ma Long roars with everything he has. The frozen prison suddenly explodes apart as Chen opens his eyes, instantly grabs Ma Long, and pulls him to safety in a single blur of motion. Even the Bone King is caught completely off guard. Only then does Ma Long realize Chen had already broken free from the ice through sheer strength alone. Chen immediately thanks him for risking his life and asks about his injuries with genuine concern. Ma Long reassures him that the bleeding has stopped for now, before quickly explaining that their enemy is the Bone King, a C-rank Lord-class cloud mage whose greatest threat is freezing its opponents. If they get trapped in the ice again, they're finished. Before they can react, the Bone King begins gathering an enormous cluster of frozen shards overhead. Ma Long's face turns pale as he realizes it's preparing an attack powerful enough to wipe out the entire battlefield. A gigantic ice bomb crashes down, burying everything beneath a blinding white explosion. The Bone King begins laughing triumphantly, until it notices both boys are still standing. Chen has already switched into his Doomflame King class and activated Frost Body, granting himself complete immunity to cold damage while dramatically increasing all of his resistance in frozen environments. In an instant, the battlefield becomes his advantage instead of the monsters. The Bone King lets out a horrified scream. Ma Long can only stare in disbelief. Chen was supposed to be a lightning assassin, yet now he's fighting as a cloud warrior. He begins wondering if Chen might be one of those impossibly rare dual-class awakeners. Chen simply apologizes for underestimating the dungeon earlier, admitting his mistake nearly got everyone killed. Then, without another word, he switches classes once again, this time into his Abyssal Fiend form. Drawing the Purgatory Warrior sword, he calmly walks toward the Bone King, with every intention of ending the battle immediately. Ma Long's jaw practically hits the floor. Ordinary Awakeners are born with only one class, while the legendary dual-class users are so rare they can be counted on one hand, making them priceless recruits for every major guild. But that's not even the most unbelievable part. Chen isn't using one class, or even two. He's casually switching between three completely different classes, each one monstrously powerful in its own right. As soon as he enters his Abyssal Fiend form, his physical attributes explode upward. He launches off the ground like a missile and charges straight toward the Bone King. The monster's smug expression instantly disappears the moment it senses Chen's overwhelming killing intent. With one effortless slash, Chen cuts straight through the skeletal lord as though slicing through paper. The Bone King dies instantly. Chen reaches level 17, and a rare item drops onto the ground. Ma Long stands frozen in absolute disbelief after witnessing a C-rank lord get one shot. Chen casually reminds him that their teammates are still trapped inside the ice. Ma Long suddenly snaps out of it, realizing he completely forgot about everyone else during the fight, and immediately sprints off to rescue them before they freeze to death. Once he's alone, Chen notices something unexpected. This time, gluttony allows him to devour the defeated Frost Lich King. Without anyone watching, he quickly absorbs the boss and successfully unlocks the Cloud Mage class. Since the Bone King's blizzard completely blinded every camera and drone in the area, no one outside witnessed Chen's secret ability. Then another pleasant surprise appears. His Lightning Assassin class has also leveled up, rewarding him with another star that can be used to further enhance one of his attributes. Meanwhile, inside the D-rank dungeon known as Gloomvine Grotto, President Ting's elite squad is getting completely overwhelmed. No matter how relentlessly they attack, the D-rank boss proves far beyond the abilities of these young awakeners. The mage, desperately maintaining his chain restraints, is already on the verge of collapse, while the lightning archer's attacks barely seem to annoy the monster. Their strongest techniques feel like harmless scratches as the beast casually swats them aside. For the first time, they begin wondering if all those months of simulations and combat drills were completely meaningless. They've never encountered anything remotely this powerful. Realizing the situation is spiraling out of control, the team's mage understands that only Ting can turn the battle around. Standing safely in the rear, Ting calmly strikes a dramatic stance as the support mages pour every enhancement they have into him. Once his power reaches its peak, he explodes forward with his blazing sword, driving the blade straight through the monster's core before a torrent of flames erupts from within, burning the boss apart from the inside out. His teammates immediately break into cheers, convinced they've just witnessed the birth of a future legend. Moments later, the drone announces that they cleared the D-rank dungeon in just over 30 minutes. The entire team is certain they've secured first place, believing no other students could possibly beat that record. They confidently leave the dungeon and pass through corridors packed with students who surrendered early, many of whom still look traumatized after facing real demons for the very first time. Ting's lackey soon notices Chen and his exhausted teammates sitting nearby, and instantly assumes they failed shortly after entering the dungeon. Smirking, he walks over and starts mocking Chen for acting so confident only to fail miserably. Before he can continue, Ting silences him because Vice Chairman Carl Cavendish is approaching. The distinguished man slowly applauds the students' efforts. As he draws closer, Ting remains composed while everyone behind him can barely contain their excitement at meeting one of the most influential figures in the world. Confident that victory is his, Ting reaches out for a handshake. To his complete embarrassment, Carl walks right past him without even a glance. Ting's pride shatters on the spot. Then Carl places a hand on Chen's shoulder and publicly praises him as the true legend of this year's graduation exam, announcing that Chen's team cleared a D-rank dungeon in only 20 minutes. He even remarks that professional parties from his own guild have never achieved such an incredible record. Ting and his lackey are left completely speechless. They can't comprehend how a 4-man team defeated a D-rank dungeon faster than their carefully assembled 10-man elite squad. Chen, however, remains completely unfazed. Praise from the most powerful man in the country means very little to him. Instead, he quietly wonders why someone of Carl's status personally came to this academy. Carl simply says he'll remember Chen's name before turning toward Gong Lin, who invited him. He casually comments that Gong Lin's son is talented as well, but the lukewarm compliment only leaves both father and son feeling even more humiliated. With that, Carl prepares to leave. Before he can, Director Gong quickly steps in and announces the official results. Since both teams finished with the same score, every member of both squads will receive an invitation to join the Imperial Guild. Chen's roommates can hardly believe it. Their futures have completely changed thanks to Chen carrying the team. Ting's followers celebrate as well, though Ting himself remains visibly dissatisfied. The director continues, explaining that both captains will receive management positions within the guild for their leadership, while the 1,000,000 Wa grand prize will be divided equally between them. Both team leaders are caught off guard. Chen quietly realizes that 5,000,000 Wa still won't be enough to repay what he owes Qingji, meaning he'll have to find another way to earn the remaining money and keep his promise to the Mithril Exchange Guild. Before he can think any further, Ting suddenly refuses to accept the tie. Declaring that there can only be one true champion, he publicly challenges Chen to a one-on-one duel to settle everything. His reckless proposal immediately draws the attention of both Director Gong and Vice Chairman Carl. Alarmed, Director Gong urgently tries to persuade his nephew to accept the draw, arguing that tying is already the best possible outcome after everything that's happened. He's convinced Chen will decline the pointless challenge, but Chen immediately agrees on one condition. The winner takes the entire 1,000,000 Wa prize. The unexpected proposal is so intriguing that Carl cancels his departure and decides to stay. With nothing left to say, Chen calmly steps forward, ready to settle their rivalry once and for all. Sometime later, Qingji admits he expected Chen to finish first, but even he never imagined Chen would earn a perfect score. Seeing Chen dominate the headlines only convinces him that investing in the young awakener was one of the smartest decisions he's ever made. Impressed, Qingji even offers to forgive Chen's entire 150,000 won debt, calling it nothing more than an investment in his future. Chen politely but firmly refuses. A debt is still a debt, and he intends to repay every last coin himself. He explains that he actually came for 2 reasons, immediately catching Qingji's attention. First, he asks for a 1-week extension on the repayment deadline. Since the graduation exam ended in a tie, he only received half the prize money. To earn the remaining 500,000 won, he'll be facing Gong Ting in a tiebreaker duel inside a wild devil cave outside the academy next week. Qingji is stunned by the idea, questioning why 2 students would willingly enter an uncontrolled dungeon without professional supervision. Chen simply tells him not to worry and confidently promises to win the remaining money. As compensation for the extension, he also offers to hand over every monster material he collects from the dungeon as interest. Watching Chen remain completely focused on repaying his debt despite everything that's happened, Qingji can't help admitting to himself that this young man is truly extraordinary. Chen then reveals he has one more, far more important reason for visiting. His expression suddenly turns serious as he delivers one final piece of news. Whatever he says leaves Qingji completely stunned. His eyes widen, his jaw drops open, and he slowly rises from his seat, unable to believe what he just heard. Later that afternoon, at Qingji Middle School, Chen's younger sister, Yuan, happily finishes her final exams while her classmates complain about how difficult the tests were. Smiling as she checks her phone and realizes summer vacation has officially begun, she suddenly remembers that today is also the day of her brother's graduation assessment. She unlocks her phone, where the wallpaper displays a cheerful selfie of the 2 siblings together. 4 years earlier, an excited Chen burst through the front door, holding his acceptance letter from the National Awakener University. After discovering he possessed elemental potential, he proudly told his little sister, Yuan, that he was 1 step closer to becoming an awakener just like their parents. Filled with hope, he promised to join one of the top guilds, earn enough money to give her a better life, and one day uncover the truth behind their parents' mysterious disappearance. Yuan smiled brightly, completely convinced her brother would become an incredible awakener. But another memory paints a very different picture. A much older Chen sat quietly at his desk, weighed down by the painful reality that he was already a senior and still hadn't awakened his powers. Seeing the worry on Yuan's face, he forced himself to smile and assured her everything was fine, insisting he simply needed to work harder. Looking back now, Yuan realizes just how much he had been hiding. Despite working harder than anyone else, he was the only student who failed to awaken, forced to watch all of his classmates succeed while silently carrying his own disappointment so she would never have to worry. Just then, her classmate Jutong runs over and excitedly asks whether she's heard the latest news. She explains that the National Awakener University has produced 2 genius graduates this year, both of whom led their teams to perfect scores and even earned personal praise from Vice Chairman Carl Cavendish of the World Guild Alliance, bringing great honor to their entire county. Remembering that Chen attends the same university, Jutong naturally asks how her brother performed. Yuan hesitates, unsure how to answer, before a pink-haired student suddenly interrupts. The school's popular idol, Jin Duxuan, casually flirts with her, saying he's already reserved a private room and inviting her to spend the evening with him. Jutong is shocked that Yuan somehow knows the campus heartthrob, but Yuan doesn't even acknowledge him. Instead, she immediately turns around and sprints down the hallway, leaving everyone confused. As she races home, her imagination runs wild, picturing Chen returning in tears after failing his graduation assessment while everyone else celebrates their success. Determined to cheer him up, she decides to prepare the biggest meal she possibly can. Later that evening, the apartment table is completely covered with food, from a steaming hot pot to countless side dishes. Chen is stunned by the feast and jokingly asks how she managed to cook so much in such a short time. While he happily enjoys every bite, Yuan quietly watches him with concern. At that moment, the television begins broadcasting a special report on the National Awakener University's graduation assessment, covering Vice Chairman Carl's visit to the academy. Seeing Chen act so cheerful, Yuan assumes he's simply pretending to hide his disappointment. Then the report announces that this year's graduation exam ended with 2 students earning perfect scores. Moments later, Carl publicly praises one of the captains before revealing his name, Chen. Yuan freezes in disbelief. The brother she believed had failed is actually one of the academy's greatest geniuses. Meanwhile, somewhere inside a dark room, a blood-stained whip lies on the floor as a cold voice quietly declares that everything has already been prepared. Standing over his battered son is Gong Lin. Furious, he lashes Gong Ting again and angrily reminds him that he invited important guests specifically to witness his son's glorious victory. Instead, Ting humiliated him by tying with an unknown nobody. Gong Lin coldly announces that his son no longer has the right to make his own decisions. He's already taken control of the upcoming tiebreaker and personally arranged everything to guarantee victory. Hanging his head in silence, Gong Ting can only listen as his father vows to secure first place for the Gong family by any means necessary. Back at the apartment, Yuan slowly turns toward her brother and nervously asks whether the Chen mentioned on television is really him. Chen calmly continues eating before casually confirming that it is. The spoon slips from Yuan's hand and shatters against the floor as thunder rumbles outside, perfectly matching her overwhelming shock. She stares at her brother in complete disbelief, finally realizing that he not only led his team to a perfect score, but also received personal recognition from the vice chairman of the World Guild Alliance. Silence fills the room. Overcome with emotion, Yuan lowers her head as tears begin rolling down her face. Looking back at her once hopeless brother, she smiles through her tears, overwhelmed with pride because he has finally reached the top. Later that night, on June 17, 2157, Vice Chairman Carl Kaindish quietly enjoys a meal of premium beef inside a private dining room while asking for an update on his current investigation. Sitting across from him is Ling Yu, who slides a classified black folder across the table containing confidential information on an individual known only as the Devourer. She reports that the target has left no trace for over a year and warns that continuing their surveillance could expose their operation. Carl remains completely unfazed, compliments her work, and casually tells her to eat before discussing anything else. Ling Yu hesitates, explaining that she has one additional report. She reveals that someone who recently came into contact with Carl has displayed an incredibly abnormal rate of growth, immediately capturing his full attention. At the same time, deep inside the Void Tower, a shirtless Chen stands surrounded by crackling golden lightning. After spending more than half a month fighting on the first floor, he's nearly exterminated every monster there and has fully adapted to the crushing gravity that's 10 times stronger than Earth's. His system now shows his Lightning Assassin class at level 17, with dramatically increased attributes. After the graduation battle, the class reached 100% proficiency and rewarded him with an additional attribute point, proving that actively using a class is the fastest way to master it. Looking at the glowing projections of all 4 of his classes, Chen realizes none of them have reached their true limits yet. Without hesitation, he invests his newest point into speed, the most important attribute for an assassin. The increase pushes his speed all the way to 740, matching the level of an A-rank assassin. Even with that incredible improvement, he still finds himself locked in a tense battle against a pack of glowing purple phantom lionesses. His greatest obstacle remains the Phantom Lion King, a massive lord monster that he hasn't been able to land a single hit on. As 2 lionesses leap toward him, Chen activates Divine Flash and transforms into a streak of golden lightning to intercept them. While exchanging blows, he notices something strange. Every time he finds an opening against the Lion King, the monster instantly disappears before his attack can connect. Carefully observing the battlefield, Chen realizes the Pride constantly shifts its formation. 2 lionesses engage him head-on, while the other 2 remain in reserve, and throughout the entire fight, the Lion King deliberately stays just out of reach. Narrowing his eyes, Chen finally understands that the cunning lord has no intention of fighting him directly. Staring at the enormous beast, he begins wondering exactly what kind of combat class allows the Phantom Lion King to fight with such elusive precision. As one of the Phantom Lionesses charges in, Chen instantly counters by driving a bolt of lightning straight into its open mouth. He's just about to finish it off when the beast suddenly vanishes in a flash of pink light, leaving him empty-handed. That's when he realizes the teleportation ability doesn't belong only to the Lion King. Every lioness disappears the moment a killing blow is about to land. A spatial portal opens, allowing the endangered beast to reappear safely beside the Lion King. At that moment, the pack's strategy becomes obvious. Whenever Chen pauses, another lioness immediately rushes in to bait out his attacks. Determined to break their rhythm, he floods his body with golden lightning and unleashes a relentless barrage of slashes. But every strike cuts through empty air as the beasts teleport away at the last possible second. The pack never breaks formation. Each time one of them is threatened, it instantly retreats through a portal while another fresh attacker takes its place. Chen keeps striking, yet the same cycle repeats over and over until sweat begins pouring down his face. Staring at the Lion King, he finally realizes the Lord isn't trying to win quickly at all, it's deliberately dragging out the fight just to toy with him. As he flips over another lunging lioness, Chen suddenly questions why he's stubbornly trying to defeat teleporting enemies with nothing but speed. Without hesitation, he opens his system and switches classes. A surge of icy blue energy engulfs his body as frost spreads across him like armor. His hair turns snow white, his eyes glow with cold blue light, and the system confirms his transformation into the level 17 Cloud Mage, Frostbone Skeleton King. Since the Lion King refuses close combat, Chen decides to answer with overwhelming long-range magic instead. Floating high above the battlefield, he immediately casts Frost Spike. Countless ice spears rain down across the entire area, exploding one after another and forcing the Phantom Lionesses to scatter in every direction. Looking down from above, Chen realizes this is exactly where a mage shines. While they may struggle in close combat, they completely dominate the battlefield from long range. He quickly shifts his focus to the Lion King, directing a concentrated barrage of ice spikes toward it. Just before the attack lands, the beast teleports away once again, emerging safely through another portal. But this time, Chen was expecting it. The instant the Lion King regroups with the rest of the pack, a massive vortex of freezing energy erupts around them, trapping every single beast inside his kill zone. Their hit-and-run tactics have finally been shut down. The Lion King senses the danger and looks up in panic, only to see Chen creating an enormous sphere of freezing energy overhead. Coldly staring down at his prey, Chen declares there's nowhere left for them to run before hurling the Frost Blast bomb toward the ground. The massive spell detonates in a blinding explosion of ice and white light. When the smoke finally clears, the entire pack, including the Lion King, is completely frozen inside towering pillars of jagged ice. Without wasting a second, Chen immediately switches classes again. A glowing pink sword materializes in his hand as he calmly announces that the battle for the first floor of the Dreadspire is finally over. Transforming into his Stellar Warrior class, he launches himself toward the frozen enemies and brings his blade crashing down with triple cataclysm. The enormous energy slash cleaves effortlessly through every frozen lioness, shattering both the ice and the monsters in a single devastating sweep. The defeated beasts dissolve into dark mist, leaving only the fallen Lion King behind. The system immediately confirms his victory. His alias, Ash C, jumps to level 24, rewarding him with multiple phantom bones and a rare heart. Another notification quickly appears, informing him that the defeated Lion King can now be devoured. Curious about the mysterious class that allowed the beast to evade him so effectively, Chen immediately activates his Devour ability. Dark crimson energy spirals out of the Lion King's corpse and gathers inside his hand before forming a brand new class card. The result surprises him. The Lion King possessed the Stellar Tamer class. Reading through the description, Chen discovers it specializes in forcing contracts with beasts and instantly teleporting them across the battlefield. It's unlike any class he's ever encountered. Everything suddenly makes sense. The Lion King's own combat abilities were relatively weak, so it relied entirely on teleporting its contracted beasts to fight while staying out of danger itself. As he continues reading, Chen admits that Stellar Warp is an incredibly powerful teleportation skill. The Stellar Pact ability also catches his attention. Although it depends on overwhelming weaker creatures through intimidation before forming contracts, Chen realizes that if he ever wants a contracted beast of his own, he'll need to be far more ruthless than he expected. Suddenly, the star-filled void surrounding him shatters into countless fragments of light. The illusion disappears completely, revealing the true first floor of the Dreadspire. A scorching desert stretching endlessly beneath the blazing sun, littered with enormous skeletons half buried beneath the sand. Looking across the desolate landscape, Chen can't help wondering what kind of catastrophe wiped out such gigantic creatures. A crackling sound suddenly pulls his attention toward a nearby sand dune. A vertical rift slowly tears open before expanding into a blazing portal, signaling that the entrance to the second floor has officially appeared. Just as Chen prepares to move forward, a hostile growl echoes from behind him. He immediately turns and traces two glowing pink eyes hidden inside the ribcage of one of the giant skeletons. Curled up inside is a small, fluffy lion cub, fiercely baring its teeth despite being tightly bound by magical chains. Chen is genuinely surprised that such a tiny creature survived the battle. Assuming it's simply the last remaining enemy, he forms a lightning dagger and walks toward it to finish the job. But as he gets closer, he notices something strange. The cub didn't disappear when the Lion King died, meaning it was never one of the boss's contracted beasts. Looking more carefully at the heavy chains wrapped around the frightened cub, Chen begins to wonder if the Lion King had actually been keeping it imprisoned against its will. The moment he fixes the little cub with an intimidating glare, the tiny creature immediately trembles in terror. Instead of attacking the frightened cub, Chen swings his lightning dagger and shatters the magical chains binding it. The little lion drops harmlessly onto the sand as Chen calmly turns away, saying he's simply returning its freedom. Before leaving, he asks whether this ruined wasteland was once the cub's home. As the tiny lion quietly dusts itself off, Chen can't help thinking about the pain of watching everyone you love disappear and everything you cherish be reduced to ruins. Looking into the cub's eyes, he softly admits that he understands that feeling better than anyone. Walking toward the portal, he tells the little lion to stay alive and keep moving forward before preparing to ascend to the next floor. Suddenly, a system notification appears beside him. The cub has voluntarily requested a beast contract, giving the agreement a 100% success rate. The contract also grants two passive abilities. One shares experience and boosts the beast's growth, while the other allows Chen to see through its eyes whenever it's in danger. Surprised, Chen turns around and finds the little white lion sitting quietly in the sand. The system identifies it as Lion King Leo and asks whether he wishes to accept its request to become his contracted beast. Looking at the determined cub, Chen asks if it's truly willing to follow him. Leo answers with a resolute roar. Standing before the blazing portal, Chen explains that he's climbing the Dread Spire, where every floor will be more dangerous than the last, and warns Leo that it could lose its life. The cub roars once more without the slightest hesitation. Satisfied with its determination, Chen accepts the contract. A glowing pink pentagram lights up in both of their eyes as the system officially establishes their bond. The Stellar Tamer abilities become fully available, including Stellar Pact, which creates beast contracts through overwhelming intimidation, though any contracted beast will die if its master falls. The two passive skills activate immediately, increasing the beast's attributes, sharing experience, and allowing Chen to borrow its vision whenever it's in danger. Stellar Warp also unlocks, letting him instantly summon Leo or teleport directly to its location. Smiling at his new companion, Chen announces that it's time to continue climbing. The energetic cub happily bounds after him. Before stepping through the portal, Chen gives Leo one simple order. No matter what happens during battle, survival always comes first. Together they cross into the second floor and arrive atop a rocky cliff overlooking a vast underground world filled with rivers of molten lava and towering pillars of fire. The scorching heat is so intense that sweat immediately pours down Chen's face, making him feel as though his body could melt at any moment. As they cautiously explore, Leo peers over the edge of a lava-filled chasm. Chen admits he has no idea what kind of monsters await them, but before he can finish speaking, a disturbance erupts beneath the molten rock. A blinding flash explodes across the cavern. His instincts immediately scream in warning as his eyes glow crimson, sensing an overwhelming threat unlike anything before. Before he can even react, something unimaginably fast tears straight through his chest. The next instant, Chen jolts awake in his bed, back in the real world, gasping for air while clutching his chest. The phantom pain still lingers as he realizes he was killed instantly, without ever seeing his attacker. Shaken by the sheer difference in power, he can't help wondering what kind of nightmare monster rules the second floor of the Dread Spire. His thoughts are interrupted when Yuan calls from outside his room that breakfast is ready. Sitting at the table, Chen stares at a surprisingly lavish breakfast of ramen and fresh fruit, joking that she prepared far too much food. While munching on toast, Yuan packs her bag and casually orders him to wash the dishes afterward and hang up the laundry before she leaves. Curious, Chen asks where she's rushing off to during summer vacation. She smiles and explains she's heading to a part-time job. Concerned, Chen reminds her that he's responsible for supporting the family now, so she doesn't need to work anymore. Yuan simply laughs, saying that now he's finally moving forward, she refuses to be the one falling behind. Besides, spending the whole summer doing nothing would be unbearably boring. After reminding him one last time not to forget the chores, she heads out. Once she's gone, Chen obediently washes the dishes and hangs the laundry around the apartment. Looking at an old photograph of the two of them together, he reflects that Yuan has always been the stronger one emotionally. Even though she's younger, she's often the one taking care of him instead. But his thoughts soon turn toward the future. Once everything at school is finished, he'll have to confront the Demon King Wrath, a battle that could keep him away from his sister for a very long time. Realizing she's the only person he truly can't stop worrying about, an idea suddenly flashes across his mind. Activating his abilities, Chen channels pink energy through his fingertips and opens a portal. A second later, Lion King Leo tumbles out into the living room. Chen stares in amazement. He never expected his contracted beast could actually be summoned out of the Dread Spire and into the real world. Meanwhile, Leo immediately makes itself at home, sprinting around the apartment and happily shredding boxes of tissues. Looking at his system, Chen quickly comes up with a plan. If he leaves Leo to protect Yuan while he's away, their shared passive abilities will immediately alert him if she's ever in danger, allowing him to see through Leo's eyes and teleport to her location instantly. Remembering how much his sister loves animals and always stops to pet stray cats and dogs, Chen smiles, convinced a lion cub will make the perfect gift. His confidence lasts only a few seconds before a loud crash echoes from the kitchen. Rushing over, he discovers complete disaster. Leo has smashed dishes across the floor and is happily chewing on the kitchen faucet. Elsewhere, as the sun sets over the city, a burst of dark energy destroys a security camera mounted above a quiet street, leaving the area completely unwatched. Beneath it, a bloodied man desperately retreats while clutching an ice blade, begging an unseen enemy for mercy. His plea is answered by the appearance of a gigantic demonic claw. The monstrous hand instantly pierces through his chest as crimson tendrils lift his body into the air. A horrifying system interface materializes before him, displaying a loading bar that coldly announces he is being devoured. At the same time, Yuan slowly walks home after finishing her first day of summer work, carrying several shopping bags and sighing in relief after surviving the exhausting bubble tea rush. As she enters a dim underpass, she unknowingly passes directly beneath the destroyed security camera. The echo of her footsteps suddenly stops when she senses someone nearby. Turning toward the darkness, she hears a cold voice quietly announce that she has finally arrived. Waiting patiently in the shadows is Jin Du-xuan, holding a large bouquet of red roses, making it obvious that he's been expecting her for quite some time. Stepping into Yuan's path, Jin Du-xuan presents the bouquet and explains that she left school too quickly to hear his invitation. He proudly reveals that he reserved the entire top floor of Purple Peak Tower for the two of them tonight. Instead of being impressed, Yuan calmly asks how he even found her home address. Jin smugly boasts that his father is the director of the city hospital, making information like that effortless to obtain. Completely unmoved, Yuan coldly tells him they're people from different worlds, and orders him never to look for her again before walking away. Humiliated, Jin suddenly grabs her arm and angrily complains about all the effort he spent arranging tonight's event, demanding to know if she really intends to embarrass him in front of all his guests. Yuan glares back without the slightest fear, telling him she couldn't care less about his reputation before calling him out for stalking her all the way home. The word stalker instantly makes Jin lose his composure. His face darkens as he threatens her, warning that she has no idea who she's provoking or what he's capable of doing. Before he can finish, Yuan suddenly drives her forehead straight into his face. The brutal headbutt sends him crashing onto the pavement while clutching his bleeding nose and screaming in pain. Looking down at him in disgust, Yuan sarcastically suggests he visit his father's hospital to get his head examined before warning him to stay away from her forever and storming off, muttering that he completely ruined her day. Later that evening, the warm lights glowing from her apartment window are a sharp contrast to the dark streets outside. The moment Yuan walks through the door, Chen surprises her with the fluffy white lion cub, Leo. Her eyes instantly light up with excitement as she scoops the tiny beast into her arms and showers it with affection. Completely captivated, she excitedly asks where her brother found such an adorable little lion. Smiling, Chen introduces Leo and tells her it's a special gift just for her. Overjoyed, Yuan can hardly believe she now has a baby lion of her own. As Leo happily purrs in her embrace, she suddenly notices something strange. The tiny cub already has a full mane, even though only adult male lions are supposed to grow one. After a brief moment of confusion, she simply laughs it off and decides she'll register Leo the following morning. Watching the two of them bond so naturally, Chen quietly relaxes, knowing his sister will have someone to protect her while he's away. Just then, his phone chimes. Looking down at the screen, a satisfied smile spreads across his face after reading an email from the Guild Supervision Bureau confirming that his application has officially been approved. With everything finally falling into place, Chen knows his preparations are complete. His family is safe, the paperwork is finished, and all that's left is the graduation tiebreaker against Gong Ting, now only 6 days away. 6 days later, the deciding match begins on the outskirts of the city inside Greenlight Forest. Standing before a massive ancient tree with a glowing green portal at its base, Director Gong Xuan explains the rules to both competitors. The Academy has chosen a real wild dungeon for the tiebreaker, one that recent surveys classify as D rank. Unlike the Academy's controlled dungeons, however, this one is completely unmapped and significantly more dangerous. To ensure both safety and fairness, 3 veteran awakeners will accompany the candidates as examiners: Ivan from the Imperial Guild, Yasmin Kai from the Divine Eye Guild, and Sato Woda from the Silver Guild. Their observations alone will determine the competitors' final scores. Meanwhile, inside the Academy's dark VIP room, a live broadcast of the exam plays across a giant screen. Watching with a faint smile, Gonglin silently hopes the 3 examiners remember the secret arrangement he made with them and leave no loose ends behind. Sitting nearby, Principal Yuan Long curiously asks Vice Chairman Carl Cavendish why he's still at the Academy when his official visit ended 2 days earlier. Carl simply laughs while watching Chen and Gong Ting appear on the screen. He admits that nothing is more entertaining than watching 2 genuine prodigies compete, and says he has no intention of missing a battle like this. Back at the dungeon entrance, Director Gong officially declares the start of the graduation tiebreaker. Without exchanging a single word, both Chen and Gong Ting step through the glowing portal. Emerging on the other side, Chen finds himself standing inside a gloomy forest filled with dead trees and twisted branches beneath a dark sky. The 3 examiners quietly study their eerie surroundings. Yasmin remarks that the environment resembles a flower-type dungeon, while Ivan casually offers Sato a cigarette. Sato immediately reminds him they're on duty and the camera drones are recording everything. Suddenly, an intense buzzing echoes inside Chen's mind. He freezes as a bright crimson hologram bursts from his chest, bathing his face in red light. His system displays an emergency warning, informing him that an extremely dangerous creature is somewhere nearby. Chen is genuinely stunned. This is the first time his demon heart has ever issued such a severe alert. Just as suddenly as it appeared, the warning disappears, leaving him wondering whether a monster far stronger than a normal D-rank enemy is secretly hiding inside this supposedly ordinary dungeon. Ignoring the uneasy feeling, Chen and Gong Ting continue deeper along a desolate trail, surrounded by gigantic roots and thick fog. Ting confidently leads the way, while Chen silently follows behind. Watching from a nearby ridge, Yasmin comments on how unnaturally dense the fog has become. Sato immediately orders the examiners to remain alert and keep their full attention on both candidates. Without warning, a deafening crack shatters the silence as the earth explodes apart. A gigantic insect-like monster bursts from underground. The system identifies it as a poison cage ant, a D-rank flower archer. Gong Ting reacts instantly, unsheathing his katana and charging straight toward the towering creature. Impressed, Ivan praises the young man's exceptional reaction speed, but Sato quickly reminds him that monsters inside wild dungeons are far more vicious, faster, and far more cunning than anything students ever face during academy training. The poison cage ant immediately launches a barrage of glowing green poisonous projectiles, but Ting effortlessly deflects every shot with precise swordsmanship. He then leaps high into the air and slices the monstrous insect cleanly in half before its severed upper body crashes onto the ground. His blade erupts with blazing golden energy as he thrusts it into the fallen monster, activating his nuclear warrior class and unleashing Blazeblade Barrage. A massive, fiery explosion engulfs the battlefield, completely obliterating the poison cage ant. Watching from the ridge above, Yasmin raises her wrist device and displays a glowing 10, awarding Gong Ting full marks for his outstanding field awareness. She praises his instant reaction and the effortless way he neutralized the monster's ranged attacks. Ivan follows with another perfect 10, commending Ting's excellent combat judgment. By severing the creature's venom-launching organ first, he completely stripped it of its offensive capabilities before finishing it off. Sato Woda proudly reveals his own 10 as well, giving full credit for Ting's decisive finishing power. In their eyes, his flawless positioning, battlefield control, and clean execution are all exceptional. They agree that remaining so calm while facing a wild monster is an incredible achievement for a student. Sato then shifts everyone's attention to Chen, only to find him casually strolling away with his hands in his pockets. Mistaking his behavior for indifference, Sato harshly criticizes Chen for showing no reaction when the monster first appeared, immediately marking it as a serious flaw. Gong Ting says nothing, quietly watching his rival's unusually relaxed demeanor. Meanwhile, inside the VIP observation room, Carl Cavendish and Principal Yuan Long continue observing Chen. Curious, Carl asks what the young man is actually trying to accomplish wandering through the fog. Smiling knowingly, Yuan Long replies that Chen is obviously searching for something. Down in the dungeon, Chen suddenly stops beside a tangled mass of enormous tree roots. After studying the area, he realizes this single location will allow him to eliminate the entire threat at once. Golden lightning immediately gathers in his hand, forming a jagged dagger. Quietly announcing that he's finally found what he was looking for, Chen drives the blade deep into the roots. A violent surge of lightning tears through the underground tunnels before erupting in a massive explosion. Hidden beneath the earth, an entire poison cage ant nest is blasted into the sky as countless D-rank monsters are swallowed by the exploding current. The examiners instantly break into a cold sweat. Horrified, they realize Chen deliberately attacked the colony itself. Certain that provoking an entire swarm of D-rank monsters will get everyone killed, they stare at him in disbelief. Even Gong Ting's usually calm expression finally cracks as he struggles to understand what Chen intends to do next. Then Chen suddenly launches himself skyward. Lightning surges through his boots as he switches to his Lightning Assassin class and activates Divine Flash. In the blink of an eye, he becomes a streak of golden lightning racing through the air. Before the swarm can even regroup, Chen flashes between them at incomprehensible speed, unleashing countless lightning-fast slashes. A web of golden trails crisscrosses the sky as every poison cage ant is cut apart one after another. Seconds later, Chen calmly lands back on the ground while the severed corpses of the D-rank monsters rain down from above and the fading lightning slowly disappears around him. The three examiners stand frozen in complete disbelief. Sato can barely process what he just witnessed. As Chen casually wipes green monster blood from his jacket, the examiners suddenly remember that his official academy records classify him as nothing more than an E-rank awakener. The absurdity of an E-rank effortlessly annihilating an entire swarm of D-rank monsters leaves them speechless. Knowing they can no longer justify giving such a performance a poor score, the corrupt examiners begin whispering among themselves, desperately searching for excuses to sabotage Chen anyway. They consider labeling his actions as recklessly dangerous, or inventing technical faults simply to honor the secret deal they accepted. Back inside the VIP room, Carl bursts into laughter, praising Principal Yuan Long for correctly predicting that Chen had been hiding his true strength all along. He remarks that the tournament has barely begun, yet it's already become more entertaining than expected, and he's eager to see how Gong Ting responds to such overwhelming power. Standing quietly behind them, Gong Lin remains completely silent as his expression grows darker by the second. Suddenly, the live broadcast begins breaking apart under violent digital interference. The picture flickers wildly before disappearing altogether, replaced by a crimson warning announcing complete signal loss. Principal Yuan Long frowns, wondering aloud why the transmission has failed yet again. Outside the dungeon, warning alarms suddenly erupt from the monitoring equipment. A technician frantically types commands into his console as critical alerts flood the screen. To everyone's horror, the dungeon's official D-rank classification glitches into a giant question mark while every internal communication signal instantly drops to 0. Staring at the corrupted data, the technician can hardly believe his eyes. Director Gong Xuan immediately breaks into a cold sweat, demanding to know what happened inside the dungeon. Before anyone can answer, the green portal begins collapsing. Its swirling energy completely disappears, leaving behind nothing but an ordinary cave entrance and trapping everyone inside. Deep within the isolated dungeon, a haunting melody suddenly echoes through the darkness. Strange pink and green musical notes physically materialize in the air, as if the music itself has taken form. Chen immediately stops walking and listens carefully. The moment he hears the melody, his expression changes completely. He recognizes that terrifying presence instantly. It's the unmistakable voice of the Demon King Wrath. Outside the dungeon, at exactly 4 p.m., the cave entrance seals shut completely, transforming into a solid wall of stone. Director Gong Xuan panics and demands an explanation, but the technicians can only report that every connection has been severed and the monitoring equipment began producing critical system errors moments before the gateway disappeared. Realizing something catastrophic has occurred, Gong Xuan urgently orders his staff to contact headquarters immediately. Back inside the dungeon, the eerie melody continues drifting through the air as glowing musical notes float around Chen, Gongting, and the 3 examiners. Even Yasmin and Saito admit they've never encountered anything like it. Feeling the heavy rhythm reverberate through the dungeon, Chen's expression grows increasingly grim. He knows exactly what he's hearing. This is the voice of the Demon King, Wrath. But that realization makes no sense. According to everything he knows, Wrath isn't supposed to appear for another 3 years. Without warning, Chen's demon heart floods his vision with crimson emergency alerts. Every instinct tells him the same thing. An overwhelming threat is closing in. Heavy footsteps begin shaking the ground beneath everyone's feet, and Chen immediately realizes that something enormous is standing just behind them inside the dense fog. A sinister laugh echoes through the cavern as a gigantic silhouette slowly emerges from the mist. Even veteran examiner Sato Woda feels a chill run down his spine, wondering what kind of monster could radiate such terrifying pressure. Then 2 glowing eyes pierce the darkness. Stepping into full view, the creature reveals itself as a grotesque humanoid mantis wrapped in sinister black energy. Looking down at the humans, it calmly welcomes them before declaring that they have walked straight into its carefully prepared trap. Hearing a monster speak leaves Sato completely stunned. Any beast capable of human speech must be at least a high-tier C rank. He can't understand how something this powerful could possibly exist inside what was supposed to be a D-rank dungeon. Fearing the students will be slaughtered, Sato immediately summons a massive glowing battle axe and charges forward, shouting for everyone to stay behind him. But before his attack can even land, the mantis moves with impossible speed. In one clean motion, its razor-sharp scythe slices straight through Sato's arm, severing it instantly. Before anyone can even react, the monster disappears again and reappears directly behind Gongting, raising its blood-soaked blade. Sneering at the group, it tells them to stop struggling and quietly accept death. The next instant, the scythe drives straight through Gongting's shoulder and bursts out from his chest. Despite the horrifying wound, Gongting doesn't collapse. Instead, a crazed grin slowly spreads across his face. Taking advantage of the monster's exposed arm, he swings his flaming sword downward and chops the mantis's scythe arm clean off. The creature's eyes widen in shock before Gongting follows with a powerful flying kick that sends the crippled monster crashing across the battlefield. Blood pours from the massive hole in his shoulder, but Gongting ignores the pain completely. Locking eyes with Chen, he coldly declares that since the monster attacked him first, it belongs to him under the rules of combat priority, warning Chen not to interfere. Chen says nothing. Activating his analysis ability, his glowing green eyes examine the mantis as the system updates its information, revealing that it's actually a high-tier C-rank monster. Seeing Gongting's devastating injuries, Yasmin Kai desperately urges him to withdraw and receive immediate medical treatment, warning that this enemy is far beyond his ability. Gongting refuses without the slightest hesitation. Gathering blazing fire magic into his hand, he presses the flames directly against the gaping wound in his chest, brutally cauterizing it while enduring unbearable pain. Even Chen is momentarily shocked by the sight. Gritting his teeth, Gongting declares that the battle won't end until one of them dies, before launching himself back into the air to continue attacking the crippled mantis. Meanwhile, outside the sealed dungeon, Silas Lin, captain of the Imperial Guild's King Squad, calmly studies the vanished entrance. He explains that only an exceptionally intelligent monster could create a phenomenon like this, deliberately luring humans inside before sealing the exit behind them. Director Gong Xuan desperately asks whether there's any way to reopen the dungeon while the students are still trapped. Silas answers that only one option exists. Someone inside must locate and kill the dungeon's true overlord. Trying to stay optimistic, Director Gong argues that if this is only a D-rank dungeon, its strongest monster should merely be a C-rank overlord, meaning the students and examiners still have a chance. Silas immediately crushes that hope. He reveals that the D-rank reading was nothing but a disguise created by the overlord itself to conceal the dungeon's true danger. Piecing everything together, he realizes this is the very dungeon responsible for the recent string of missing awakeners his squad has been investigating. With a grim expression, he informs the horrified director that they're actually standing outside an extremely dangerous B-rank dungeon. Back inside, the monstrous mantis continues attacking relentlessly with its remaining scythe arm. Gong Ting meets every strike head-on, blocking the heavy blows with his flaming katana before retreating to avoid a devastating sweep. As the monster slams its blade into the ground, the weapon becomes lodged deep inside the rock. Seizing the opening, Gong Ting immediately declares that he's trapped it. One swift slash later, his blazing sword cleanly severs the mantis's head. The monster's head rolls across the rocky ground while its body collapses. Yasmin can hardly believe what she just witnessed. She openly admits Gong Ting's strength is extraordinary after apparently defeating the Overlord by himself. Nearby, Ivan uses healing magic to restore Sato's severed arm, and Sato gratefully thanks him. But his relief disappears the moment he checks his smartwatch. In a panic, he announces that all communication signals have vanished. Yasmin quickly confirms her own equipment is offline, while Ivan discovers even their positioning systems and compass no longer function. Sato suddenly realizes the camera drones have also gone silent. Before anyone can process what that means, the headless mantis abruptly stands back up. The corpse instantly charges straight toward Gong Ting. Chen reacts without hesitation. A barrage of golden lightning flashes across the battlefield, slicing the monster into countless pieces and finally destroying it for good. The system immediately rewards Chen with experience points. Still staring in disbelief, Gong Ting demands to know how the creature could continue fighting after being decapitated. Chen calmly explains that the mantis was never the true overlord. It had merely been hypnotized and controlled like a puppet, allowing its body to keep moving even after death. Realizing the real enemy is still somewhere nearby, Qin immediately orders Gong Ting and the three examiners to leave the dungeon at once, warning that any one of them could become the next victim. Gong Ting narrows his eyes and questions how Qin could possibly know something like that. Sato immediately dismisses Qin's warning, angrily insisting he's lost his mind. According to him, a dungeon can only have one C-rank overlord, so the mantis they just defeated has to be the true boss. Before Chen can argue, his demon heart erupts with another wave of crimson emergency alerts. At that exact moment, a massive pulse of psychic energy sweeps across the cavern. Yasmin, Ivan, and Sato are caught in the blast, and their eyes instantly glow with an eerie pink light as the true overlord's hypnosis completely takes over their minds. Realizing he's already too late, Chen quickly activates the wireless earbud hidden in his ear. He recognizes the strange pulsing frequency immediately. In his previous life, the Demon King Wrath used this exact sound wave to hypnotize and massacre millions of ordinary people without them ever realizing what was happening. Watching the three examiners begin marching forward in perfect synchronization like lifeless puppets, Chen becomes certain that the dungeon's true overlord is somehow connected to Wrath. Without hesitation, he follows the hypnotized group deeper into the darkness. His system continues flooding him with warnings about an extremely dangerous creature lurking ahead. Eventually, they arrive at a gigantic underground nest filled with glowing green egg sacs. Massive black serpents guard a mysterious figure concealed beneath a tattered cloth at the center of the chamber. Thanks to the anti-frequency recording playing through his earbud, a precaution he created long ago specifically to counter Wrath's hypnosis. Chen remains completely unaffected by the monster's mind control, but he knows the unprotected examiners could die from the mental strain at any moment, so he immediately decides to eliminate the overlord before it's too late. As soon as the creature senses the human's arrival, its sinister voice echoes throughout the cavern, greedily welcoming the fresh prey that has wandered into its nest. Chen simply stares back with icy determination, ready to fight. At that moment, Gong Ting's memories suddenly surface. Years earlier, an exhausted and blood-covered 8-year-old Gong Ting stood over his younger brother, Gong Chong, after defeating him with a broken wooden stick. Watching the brutal scene without the slightest emotion, their father, Gong Lin, calmly congratulated Gong Ting on his victory. While the family enjoyed a luxurious meal inside, Gong Lin explained the household's cruel rule. Only the winner had the right to eat, while the loser had to kneel outside until sunrise. Bruised, starving, and trembling, Gong Chong obediently remained outside. Unable to bear the sight, Gong Ting secretly brought his brother a piece of bread. Gong Chong nervously warned that their father would punish them both if they were discovered, but Gong Ting simply told him to stop talking and eat. Moments later, Gong Lin caught them. Gong Ting was viciously slapped across the face and forced onto his knees, while his father towered over him with a whip. Looking down at his son, Gong Lin asked whether he understood why the Gong family held so much power. His answer was simple. They had never accepted defeat. Winners create the rules, while losers are forced to obey them. Even after being beaten, the young Gong Ting defiantly asked whether defeating his father someday would allow him to make the rules instead. Gong Lin merely laughed. Years later, after another brutal defeat, Gong Ting collapsed to the ground beside his shattered sword, coughing blood as he demanded to know why his father refused to face him in a fair duel, and instead ordered Silas Lin to fight on his behalf. Gong Lin answered without shame that true strength wasn't measured by personal power alone, but by the authority to command others. The world, he said, was never fair. The only thing that mattered was victory. Methods meant nothing. Results meant everything. As a member of the Gong family, Gongting was expected to become #1 no matter the cost, even if it required abandoning family, loyalty, or his own dreams. Gonglin ended his lesson with one final sentence that permanently scarred his son. Gongting was only allowed to live as long as he continued winning. Back in the present, Chun and Gongting stand before the hidden overlord, surrounded by countless giant snakes and glowing egg sacs. While Chun remains immune to the hypnosis thanks to his prepared counterfrequency, the examiners are completely defenseless. Determined to kill the monster immediately, Chen starts forward, but Gongting suddenly grabs his wrist and stops him. To break free from the lingering hypnosis himself, Gongting brutally digs his fingers into the massive wound in his own chest, forcing fresh blood to pour out. Barely holding himself together through the pain, he admits he has no idea how Chen resisted the mind control, but deliberately aggravating his injury is the only way he can stay conscious. He urgently warns Chen that attacking recklessly will expose their location and doom everyone. Pointing toward the countless egg sacs surrounding the throne, Gongting explains that disturbing the nest will awaken dozens of C-rank monsters at once, leaving them no chance of survival. He quickly pieces together the Overlord's strategy. It deliberately disguised its nest as a harmless D-rank dungeon to lure unsuspecting awakeners inside before wiping them out. Because of that, Gongting proposes a different plan. They should remain hidden and wait. Eventually, the Overlord will approach them on its own, creating the perfect opportunity to launch a surprise attack together. Chen admits he's genuinely impressed by how calm and logical Gongting remains under such overwhelming pressure. But despite praising his reasoning, Chen immediately rejects the plan. He explains that this particular Overlord doesn't need to approach them at all. It doesn't even have to attack physically. With nothing more than a single thought, it can force anyone under its hypnosis to take their own life. As if proving Chen right, the three hypnotized examiners suddenly begin acting. Sato reaches for a saw, Yasmin raises her gun toward her own head, and Ivan starts strangling himself. Chen reacts instantly. Using lightning-fast speed, he knocks all three unconscious before any of them can harm themselves. The sudden movement, however, immediately draws the attention of the true Overlord. Realizing its prey is resisting, the true Overlord hisses in frustration, declaring that its meal has been ruined. With a single command, the glowing green egg sacs surrounding its throne burst open one after another. Dozens of C-rank blade armor mantises crawl out of the shattered shells, and the Overlord immediately orders the entire swarm to slaughter the intruders. Seeing the monsters close in from every direction, Gongting instantly realizes their stealth plan has completely fallen apart. Without hesitation, he steps in front of the unconscious examiners, draws his flaming sword, and orders Chen to carry the three adults out of the dungeon while he stays behind to hold off the swarm alone. Chen is genuinely caught off guard by Gongting's willingness to throw away his own life for everyone else's survival. Gongting admits he knows he has no chance of defeating so many C-rank monsters, but if sacrificing himself can buy Chen enough time to escape with the others, then it's worth it. As he clashes head-on with a charging mantis, the monster's overwhelming strength immediately blasts him backward. Planting his sword into the ground to stop himself from sliding, Gongting stubbornly declares that this disaster happened because he insisted on the tiebreaker duel, so it's his responsibility to fix it. Hearing those words, Chen quietly admits that he completely misjudged Gongting's character. As his system initiates a class change, he reminds Gongting that he willingly accepted the duel as well, meaning the responsibility isn't his alone. Golden lightning erupts around Chen as he transforms into his level 24 lightning assassin. A crackling lightning blade forms in his hand, while the giant Overlord looms behind the endless swarm. Calmly gripping his weapon, Chen announces that he already has a plan. Bleeding heavily, Gongting immediately objects. Judging from the monster's terrifying aura, he believes the Overlord is at least B rank, perhaps even A rank, and insists that fighting is suicide. He begs Chen to take the unconscious examiners and run while he covers the retreat. Chen agrees that the monster is unimaginably dangerous, but calmly points out the flaw in that plan. The dungeon entrance has already been sealed. If escape were still possible, the Imperial Guild's rescue team would have entered long ago. Gongting is stunned to realize they're completely trapped. Chen silently studies the motionless Overlord, comparing its pressure to the Phantom Lion King he defeated inside the Dread Spire. If its strength truly reaches a rank, this battle will be far more difficult than anything they've faced so far. Before either of them can say another word, the swarm attacks. One mantis lunges forward, but Chen casually blocks its massive scythe with his lightning dagger. At the same time, another monster dives from above, prompting Gongting to shout a warning. The two instinctively move together. Their glowing blades flash in perfect synchronization, instantly cutting down both attacking mantises. Moments later, the rest of the swarm rushes them all at once. Clutching his wounded chest, Gongting grits his teeth, realizing they're only one mistake away from being overwhelmed. Chen ignores the impossible odds. Lightning gathers in his hands as he creates multiple crackling energy blades before launching them through the charging monsters. Several mantises are skewered instantly. Then he activates Divine Flash. His body disappears into a streak of golden lightning as he tears through the battlefield, decapitating monster after monster in a single high-speed charge. Watching the unbelievable display, Gong Ting can hardly believe his eyes. Assassins are supposed to have weak physical strength and perform poorly against large groups, yet Chen effortlessly dodges every incoming attack while every single strike lands precisely on a fatal weak point. Gong Ting finally understands. Chen isn't overcoming his class's weakness with brute force. He's compensating through overwhelming speed and flawless technique. Staring at the countless afterimages racing across the battlefield, Gong Ting realizes Chen's speed has already reached A rank, if not beyond. Inspired by what he's witnessing, Gong Ting tightens his grip on his sword, convinced they might actually survive. Their determination only enrages the Overlord further. Dark pink energy erupts from its body and spreads across the battlefield, coating every surviving mantis in a sinister aura. Their strength, speed, and durability surge dramatically as the Overlord orders the enhanced swarm to tear Chen apart. Chen immediately meets the empowered enemies head-on. One buffed mantis crashes toward him, but he effortlessly leaps over the attack and slices it apart in midair. Seeing the battle becoming even more intense, Gong Ting shouts for Chen to keep fighting while preparing his own attack. Chen pushes his lightning assassin abilities to the limit, unleashing a relentless storm of golden slashes against the strengthened monsters. Suddenly, one mantis appears directly behind him. Chen barely avoids the fatal strike by disappearing at the last instant before counterattacking with an explosive barrage of close-range slashes. To his surprise, every blow bounces harmlessly off the creature's reinforced armor. The enraged mantis retaliates with a devastating strike that sends Chen sliding backward even though he successfully blocks it. Breathing heavily, Chen immediately realizes what has changed. The Overlord's enhancement has boosted every mantis to B-rank level physical abilities. Their shells have become as hard as solid steel, making precise weak point attacks ineffective. If they want any chance of winning, they'll first need a way to completely shatter that armor. Behind him, Gong Ting thanks Chen for buying him the precious time he needed. Without hesitation, he abandons speed, stamina, and elemental control, pouring every remaining ounce of his strength into a single all-or-nothing attack. Flames erupt violently around his sword, exploding upward into a colossal pillar of fire. Meanwhile, far away at the apartment later that evening, Jutong returns carrying several bags of groceries and apologizes for taking so long to buy the drinks. Yuan, with Leo happily resting on her shoulder, smiles and tells her not to worry because her brother still hasn't returned home. Surprised, Jutong asks whether Chen is really still out, then excitedly wonders if Yuan has already told him that she passed the entrance exam for the art academy. Back at the apartment, Yuan admits she still hasn't told Chen the good news about passing the art academy entrance exam, though she already hinted that she has something important to share with him. Assuming her brother is simply running late, she suggests they start preparing dinner without him. Just then, she notices the garlic sauce jar is empty and asks Jutong to wait at home while she takes Leo on a quick trip to the convenience store. She also plans to buy some snacks so they can celebrate properly later. A short time afterward, Yuan finishes shopping and heads back through the quiet streets. Hidden inside her backpack, Leo happily munches on his food. Smiling warmly, Yuan calls him her little angel, praising him for staying so quiet the whole time and promising to buy him cookies next time. What she doesn't realize is that someone has been watching her from a nearby alley. A hooded man compares her to a photograph before quietly reporting over his radio that they've located the target. When he asks whether they should move in, the voice on the other end orders him to wait until she's outside the range of the street cameras. The stalkers obey and silently begin following her. As Yuan walks home, she notices the sound of heavy footsteps matching her pace. Realizing the strangers have been tailing her ever since she left the store, she calmly wonders what they could possibly want. Inside the backpack, Leo lets out a low, warning growl. Gently patting the cub, Yuan quietly tells him to stay hidden before glancing back at the men with a fearless expression. Instead of panicking, she calmly mutters that tonight just became interesting. Meanwhile, deep inside the dungeon, Chen quickly realizes that the Overlord's dark enhancement has elevated the mantis swarm to an entirely different level. Their shells have become as hard as solid steel, making his precision attacks nearly useless. Before he can devise another strategy, Gong Ting suddenly thanks him for buying enough time. Abandoning all concern for stamina and speed, Gong Ting pours every remaining ounce of power into pure strength. Flames explode around him in a towering pillar of fire as his eyes blaze with determination. Declaring that he'll reduce every monster to ashes regardless of their strength, Gong Ting unleashes his ultimate attack. A colossal blade of fire tears straight through the charging swarm before crashing directly into the waiting Overlord. The entire cavern erupts in a blinding inferno. Having exhausted every last drop of strength, Gong Ting collapses to one knee, using his sword to keep himself upright. Certain that the battle is finally over, he sighs with relief as the flames slowly begin to fade. Then an eerie laugh echoes through the smoke. The Overlord mockingly asks if that pathetic attack was really their best. Gong Ting freezes, while Chen calmly watches the fire clear away. To everyone's horror, the Overlord stands completely unharmed inside a gigantic, glowing green barrier. Looking down at them, it dismisses their desperate attack as nothing more than a disappointment. Every ounce of hope drains from Gongting's face. He has sacrificed everything and still failed to leave even a scratch on the monster. Chen, however, quietly studies the shield and quickly discovers the truth. Just before the attack landed, the Overlord drained the life force from its remaining monster eggs to create an almost impenetrable barrier. Barely able to stand, Gongting finally begins to despair, wondering whether this is where they'll both die. Chen calmly walks past him and unexpectedly offers a deal. Gongting can keep first place in the graduation exam as long as Chen receives the entire cash prize. But in exchange, Gongting must promise never to reveal what he's about to witness. Without waiting for an answer, Chen begins switching classes. A massive glowing sword materializes in his hand as he transforms into his hidden demonic class. Gongting stares in complete disbelief, realizing his rival possesses a second combat class that nobody knows about. Suddenly, streams of glowing pink energy surge out of every dead mantis corpse and rush into Chen's body. Activating a unique ability, he absorbs the remaining life force and power left behind by the fallen monsters, converting all of it into his own strength. A towering pillar of crimson energy erupts around him as his aura climbs dramatically higher. Covering his face against the violent shockwaves, Gongting watches in stunned silence. Even the Overlord stops moving, silently observing the terrifying transformation. Exhaling a cloud of energy, Chen feels his strength and stamina reach their absolute peak. Surrounded by sinister demonic power, he calmly repeats his earlier promise. He alone will kill this monster. Realizing the danger, the Overlord immediately casts Soul Rest Enigma. An enormous wave of psychic energy explodes outward from its barrier, flooding the cavern with crushing mental pressure. Gongting instantly grabs his head as the hypnosis tears through his exhausted mind, leaving him screaming in agony. Chen doesn't even flinch. The Overlord visibly freezes as Chen casually begins walking toward it with his massive sword resting across his shoulder. Completely bewildered, the creature demands to know why its hypnosis has no effect on him. Panicking, it immediately unleashes sonic hell, sending a devastating shockwave roaring through the cavern. The violent blast forces Gongting to his knees, but Chen simply continues walking as if nothing happened. Fear finally begins creeping into the Overlord's voice. It cannot understand how every one of its abilities has become completely useless. Desperate, it commands its summoned guardians to tear Chen apart. A gigantic shadow serpent lunges toward him, but Chen casually swings his sword once, splitting the creature's head clean in half. Before its body even hits the ground, two more enormous serpents dive from above. Chen sweeps his blade in a single wide arc, instantly decapitating both monsters. With nothing left standing in his way, he charges straight toward the Overlord. Laughing nervously, the creature insists that its barrier is absolutely unbreakable. Chen simply asks, "Are you sure?" before launching himself high into the air directly above the glowing shield. The system announces the activation of Chen's stellar warrior skill, Ashwari Collapse, which drains the remaining energy from every nearby monster corpse to fuel his own strength. Letting out a furious roar, Chen pours every ounce of power into a single strike and brings his massive sword crashing down. The seemingly indestructible barrier explodes into countless fragments. Both the Overlord and Gongting stare in complete disbelief. The shield that had effortlessly blocked Gongting's ultimate attack is destroyed in a single blow. Without giving the monster a chance to recover, Chen throws aside his sword as blinding energy gathers around his fist. The system immediately confirms the activation of Triple Cataclysm, Crushing Mode. Chen drives his fist straight through the Overlord's body, unleashing an overwhelming burst of raw power that blasts the creature into the ground. As the dust slowly settles, only a battered shadow of the once mighty Overlord remains inside the crater, barely muttering that it is only half dead. Standing over the broken creature, Chen coldly orders it to answer one question. He wants to know what connection it has to the Demon King Wrath. The Overlord is visibly stunned that a human even knows Wrath's name. Chen demands the truth, but the monster bitterly replies that if it knew where Lord Wrath was imprisoned, it wouldn't be rotting away inside this dungeon instead of trying to free him. Those words leave Chen frozen. Someone had actually managed to seal Wrath away long before the future invasion ever began. Bursting into laughter, the dying Overlord declares that the Demon King will inevitably return. Once Wrath breaks free, he'll reunite with his armies and wipe humanity from existence. Before it can say anything more, the Overlord's core shatters and dissolves into glowing green energy. Chen immediately activates his Devour ability, absorbing the fading essence. The system rewards him with a brand new Flower Mage class called Phantom Sorcerer, inheriting the Overlord's psychic abilities and barrier techniques. His level rises to 25, and he also obtains 3 rare black-scale snake eggs. Studying the newly acquired class, Chen finally pieces together a terrifying truth. Wrath didn't suddenly appear during the future invasion. The Demon King had already been trapped in this world long before everything began. Somewhere in history, a hidden war took place to imprison him, yet Chen remembers absolutely nothing about it. Before he can think further, Gongting slowly limps toward him. Covered in blood and barely able to remain standing, Gongting admits he never imagined Chen was a dual-class awakener. He openly concedes defeat, acknowledging that Chun is simply operating on an entirely different level. Keeping his promise, Gongting vows to take everything he witnessed today to the grave and never reveal Chen's secret. His body finally gives out, and he collapses against the cavern wall, coughing up blood. Chen immediately tells him to hold on, reassuring him that with the Overlord dead, the dungeon exit should reopen and the Imperial Guild's rescue team will arrive at any moment. Suddenly, Chen's expression changes. His passive contract skill activates without warning, forcing Leo's vision directly into his mind. Through the cub's eyes, he sees a hostile awakener surrounded by dark, twisting energy. The moment Chen realizes Leo is with Yuan, panic flashes across his face. The shared vision reveals a man with glowing green eyes controlling sinister, shadowy tentacles while cornering his terrified sister. Yuan clutches Leo tightly against her chest, desperately shielding the tiny cub from the encroaching darkness. Earlier that same afternoon, on June 24th, Yuan had been making her way home after leaving the convenience store, completely aware that two suspicious men had been following her ever since she stepped outside. Hidden inside her backpack, Leo sensed the danger too, letting out a quiet, warning growl. Gently reassuring the cub, Yuan tells him to stay hidden instead of exposing himself. Rather than panicking, she calmly turns around with a fearless expression, almost amused that the stalkers had given her otherwise boring evening some excitement. Relying on pure instinct, she immediately heads toward the busiest part of town. She races down the stairs into the crowded restaurant district, where the dinner rush fills every street with people. Blending effortlessly into the sea of pedestrians, Yuan disappears into the crowd just as the two thugs begin forcing their way through the packed streets. By the time they finally push through the mass of people, she's already vanished without a trace. The two men frantically search every direction, completely stunned that they lost her. Believing she has successfully escaped, Yuan quietly slips into a secluded alley to catch her breath. Looking back, she sighs in relief after confirming that the stalkers are nowhere to be seen. But the relief lasts only a second. A slow pair of footsteps echoes from directly ahead. Standing calmly on the steps leading to her apartment building is an older man with slicked-back white hair, casually smoking a cigarette. Mocking her, he complains that he's been waiting for a long time because the apartment entrance was locked. Yuan's heart immediately sinks. She realizes this was a carefully planned ambush from the very beginning. Horrified, she backs away and demands to know who they are and how they found her home. Before she receives an answer, the two men from earlier suddenly emerge behind her, laughing as they block every possible escape route. Completely surrounded, Yuan makes one desperate attempt to run. But these aren't ordinary criminals, they're awakeners. A blast of freezing magic instantly shoots across the alley, trapping one of her legs inside solid ice. The sudden stop sends her crashing face first onto the pavement as her backpack flies from her shoulders. Before she can recover, the disgusting thug wearing a beanie slowly approaches, grinning while a frost-covered hand reaches toward her. Smirking, he mocks her failed escape and tells her to entertain him for a while. Just as the man is about to touch her, Yuan cries out in fear. Suddenly, a gigantic spectral lion's paw slams directly into the thug's face with overwhelming force, launching him violently through the air before he crashes into the pavement. Even the white-haired leader is caught completely off guard. A deafening impact shakes the alley as a magnificent white lion steps protectively in front of the trembling Yuan. She stares at the enormous glowing beast with wide eyes before finally recognizing the impossible truth. The majestic guardian standing between her and the attackers is none other than her tiny lion cub, Leo. Clutching his shattered face, the beanie thug screams in terror, frantically shouting that the client who hired them never warned them they'd have to fight a monstrous lion powerful enough to crush them. Leo unleashes a thunderous roar that shakes the entire alley. The hooded awakener is so terrified that he desperately charges lightning into his fists, preparing for one final stand. But Leo is still only a cub. Maintaining his majestic giant form drains every last bit of his energy. Moments after his heroic entrance, the enormous white lion rapidly shrinks back into his tiny, fluffy self before flopping onto his back, completely exhausted and dizzy. Seeing her little guardian collapse, Yuan immediately scoops him into her arms, frantically checking whether he's hurt after burning through all his strength. Watching the legendary beast instantly revert into a helpless cub, the white-haired leader can only scoff in disappointment. He had actually expected something far more impressive. With a casual snap of his fingers, he decides to end the game himself. Enormous thorn-covered roots explode through the concrete and violently spread across the narrow alley as he sneers that the cub couldn't even maintain its true form for 10 seconds. The writhing vines twist around Yuan, trapping her inside a living cage of razor-sharp branches. Holding the unconscious Leo tightly against her chest, she desperately warns the man not to come any closer. But her pleas mean nothing to a seasoned killer. As the thorny branches slowly creep toward her face, the leader gives her one final choice. Hand over the cub willingly, or he'll rip it from her corpse himself. Just before the cage completely closes, Leo's contract skill suddenly activates on its own. Stellar Warp. Consuming the remaining power of their contract, a massive portal tears open in midair. In a flash of pink light, Chen instantly teleports to Leo's location and drives a devastating kick straight into the white-haired leader's face. The impact launches the man like a rag doll, sending him crashing violently through a row of metal trash bins. Chen calmly turns toward Yuan and apologizes for arriving late, casually explaining that his business inside the dungeon took longer than expected before asking whether she and Leo are all right. The hooded thug is completely dumbfounded, unable to understand where this terrifying monster of a man suddenly came from. Still trembling, Yuan hurriedly warns Chen that she has no idea how these people tracked her down and that every one of them is a powerful awakener. Chen simply smiles reassuringly and tells her to relax because her big brother is here now. Meanwhile, the white-haired leader slowly climbs out of the wreckage. Furious that his plan fell apart because of one careless mistake, he surrounds himself with swirling, thorny roots and roars that Chen has just made the biggest mistake of his life. He vows to deliver both siblings' severed heads to his client and demand triple the payment. Chen doesn't react in the slightest. Golden lightning begins crackling around his clenched fist as he calmly tells Yuan to stay behind him, promising the fight won't take long. His words remind him of a painful childhood memory. Years ago, Chen was being brutally beaten in a filthy alley by a gang led by his orange-haired cousin, who mocked him while demanding he learn his place. As the thugs pinned young Chen helplessly to the ground, Yuan suddenly rushed into the alley, gripping a heavy metal pipe, fearlessly shouting for them to let her brother go. The arrogant cousin simply laughed, amused that such a tiny girl thought she could play the hero. Seeing the gang turn toward his sister, young Chen desperately begged his cousin to leave her alone, reminding him of the promise he had made never to hurt Yuan. His cousin openly admitted that he had lied. Today, he said, he intended to teach both siblings a lesson they would never forget. But while the bully was busy gloating, Chen spotted a brick lying beside him. Seizing the opportunity, he grabbed it and smashed it straight into the face of the thug, pinning him down. Before anyone could recover from the shock, Chen picked up the blood-stained brick and charged directly at his cousin with murderous determination. The orange-haired bully's face instantly turned pale. Chen slammed the brick into his face with brutal force, knocking him sprawling across the pavement in a pool of blood. Terrified, the defeated cousin screamed that Chen was an absolute psychopath. Only after the danger passed did the young boy gently comfort his trembling sister, assuring her that everything was all right now. Back in the present, Chen once again tells Yuan to stay safely behind him, promising to end this quickly. Refusing to let their prey escape, the three awakeners immediately charge together. Clutching the unconscious Leo, Yuan desperately warns her brother that they're all high-level awakeners and there's no way he can fight all three at once. The hooded thug rushes forward first, his fist blazing with lightning as he mocks Chen for standing completely still. Before he even realizes what happened, Chen answers with a single punch that launches him headfirst into the concrete wall. Yuan's jaw drops. She can hardly believe her brother just sent a powerful awakener flying with one effortless blow. The injured beanie thug immediately follows, lunging with an enchanted dagger, glowing with elemental energy. Chen casually catches the man's wrist in midair before driving a crushing knee straight into his face. The tremendous impact sends the thug flying backward into a pile of garbage bins. Instantly afterward, a gigantic thorn-covered root erupts from the ground toward Chen, but he calmly tilts his head at the last possible moment, allowing the attack to whip harmlessly past before smashing into the brick wall behind him. Watching both subordinates get overwhelmed so easily, the white-haired leader completely loses his composure. Roaring in humiliation that a mere student is making fools of them, he unleashes his full plant magic. Countless, enormous, glowing wooden spikes erupt around the alley as he swears to turn Chen into nothing more than a human pincushion. Chen remains completely calm. Relying on his godlike agility, he effortlessly slips through the relentless storm of razor-sharp vines without suffering so much as a scratch. In one smooth motion, he finds a tiny opening in the barrage and instantly bursts through it, closing the distance before the white-haired leader can even react. The man stares in horror, screaming that such speed should be impossible. Watching the fight unfold, Yuan suddenly remembers something she almost overlooked. Her brother hadn't merely passed his graduation combat exam. He had utterly crushed every competitor. Before the leader can recover, Chen's fist crashes straight into his jaw. The overwhelming impact sends the man flying like a cannonball before he smashes headfirst into the alley wall and collapses unconscious in a pool of blood. Nearby, the beanie-wearing thug remains motionless inside the garbage bins, while the hooded accomplice lies slumped against the wall without a trace of consciousness. In less than a minute, the entire gang has been wiped out. Casually brushing the dust off his clothes, Chen smiles at Yuan and tells her to take Leo home first. He promises he'll drop these clowns off at the guard station before heading back to the apartment. Finally feeling safe, Yuan hugs the exhausted Leo tightly and happily agrees before leaving. Hours later, beneath the pale moonlight, the white-haired leader slowly regains consciousness. Groaning in pain, he forces his swollen eyes open, only for confusion to instantly turn into panic. He and his two subordinates have been stripped of their weapons and tightly bound back-to-back around a concrete pillar, with Chen silently waiting in front of them. The leader frantically demands to know where they are and why they've been brought there, while the beanie thug whimpers that his skull feels like it's about to split apart. Ignoring every complaint, Chen calmly asks whether they belong to the Black Mountain Society. Knowing that organization never works without payment, he demands to know who hired them to kidnap his sister. The battered leader merely laughs through blood, arrogantly refusing to betray his client because informants never live long. Chen doesn't waste another word. Seeing that they want to play tough, he quietly decides to use another method. Dark psychic energy begins swirling around him as the system switches his class to the newly acquired level 25 Phantom Sorcerer. Armed with terrifying mental abilities such as Soul Rest Enigma and Ripple Hell, Chen prepares to show the mercenaries a nightmare far worse than death. Without hesitation, he activates his hypnosis, forcing his way into the white-haired leader's mind. As the man's mental defenses rapidly crumble, thorn-covered roots suddenly burst through the concrete beside them. The beanie thug screams in terror, unable to understand what's happening to his boss. Chen remains expressionless. Activating Soul Rest Enigma, he calmly selects the leader's legs as the first target. In an instant, a razor-sharp vine pierces straight through the man's thigh, splattering blood across the ground. Chen then quietly shifts his gaze toward the leader's hands. Another thorny branch erupts upward, impaling his palm and pinning it in place. Chen coldly declares that this agony is the price for daring to touch his sister. Witnessing his leader being tortured so effortlessly, the beanie thug completely breaks down. Chen slowly turns his attention toward the survivor, announcing that it's finally his turn. The surrounding roots begin creeping toward him, and that alone shatters the thug's remaining courage. Sobbing uncontrollably, he immediately confesses everything. The mastermind behind the kidnapping is none other than the son of the first hospital's director. Desperate to save himself, he blurts out the client's name, Jin Dushuan. Earlier that evening, atop the luxurious Purple Peak Tower, Jin Dushuan is relaxing at an extravagant rooftop pool party, completely unaware that his hired mercenaries have already betrayed him. His wealthy friends constantly mock him, laughing that the campus heartthrob managed to get rejected twice by the same junior girl. Humiliated, Jin silently swears that Yuan will pay dearly for embarrassing him. Irritated by the endless teasing, he snaps at one of the girls trying to follow him before storming into the restroom to cool off. As he stands at the urinal, the lights suddenly begin flickering overhead. Muttering curses about his terrible luck, he complains that even the electricity seems determined to ruin his night. Then a shadow quietly appears behind him. Jin turns around and freezes. Chen is standing there, calmly asking one simple question. "You're Jin Dushuan, aren't you?" Meanwhile, down in the security room, two guards chat about how the wealthy students rented out the entire top floor and deliberately shut down every surveillance camera so they could party without being recorded. One guard quietly reveals a disturbing rumor. Many of the girls attending those parties never came willingly. They were lured there. His coworker is horrified, but the man confirms it's true. Not long ago, one female student took her own life after being assaulted at one of those gatherings, only for the rich families involved to bury the entire scandal with money. He warns his colleague never to judge those privileged heirs by their polished appearances because, behind closed doors, they're nothing more than monsters. Meanwhile, inside the restroom, Jin Dushuan immediately panics and demands to know who Chen is, threatening to call the police and have him thrown out. Chen doesn't answer. Instead, he calmly takes out a phone and makes a call. The instant Jin hears his own phone ringing with an incoming call from his mercenary contact, Blackie, the color drains from his face. Holding Blackie's phone in his hand, Chen silently confirms that Jin is the one who hired the mercenaries to target his sister. Horrified, Jin frantically asks what happened to Blackie, but Chen responds by effortlessly crushing the phone into pieces with crackling lightning. Overcome with fear, the spoiled heir stumbles backward, screaming for Chen to stay away while desperately asking who, or what, he really is. In the next instant, Chen sends him crashing straight through the restroom window with a single devastating blow. Glass explodes everywhere as Jin plummets onto the rooftop pool deck below. Bruised and bleeding, he crawls across the floor screaming for help, only to discover a horrifying sight. Every guest at the party is already unconscious, either floating face down in the pool or lying motionless around the deck. Surrounded by a sinister aura, Chen slowly steps through the shattered window. Jin desperately crawls backward, shouting that his father is the director of the first hospital and warning Chen that touching him will bring unimaginable consequences. Chen ignores every threat. With a single command, he activates his hypnosis. Jin instantly drops to his knees as his mind falls completely under Chen's control. Looking down coldly, Chen orders him to pick up one of the broken glass shards scattered across the ground. Jin's hand moves against his own will. At that moment, it becomes painfully clear that true monsters don't exist only inside dungeons. They also hide among ordinary people. Jin and his wealthy friends once abused a helpless student, then buried the entire crime beneath their family's influence after the victim was driven to take her own life. Jin even falsified the autopsy report, proudly believing that money could erase any crime. The same monster later hired mercenaries to destroy Yuan's life as well, but this time, he targeted the wrong person's sister. As Jin slowly raises the razor-sharp shard toward his own throat under hypnosis, Chen silently vows to eliminate anyone who threatens Yuan, no matter the cost. Even if he must become judge, jury, and executioner himself, he will never hesitate to protect her. Just as Chen prepares to give the final command, the story briefly returns to the moments after the battle inside the dungeon. Standing over the badly wounded Gongting, Chen tells him to stay alive because the Overlord is dead and the rescue team should arrive at any moment. Gongting promises that once they escape, he'll personally tell everyone that Chen was the true hero who saved their lives. Before anything else can happen, Chen's contract with Leo suddenly warns him that Yuan is in danger. Through their shared vision, he sees Blackie closing in on his sister. Without a second of hesitation, Chen activates Stellar Warp, consuming his mental energy to instantly teleport out of the dungeon, leaving Gongting staring in stunned silence. Only then does Gongting realize that Chen isn't merely a dual-class awakener. He possesses multiple hidden classes, and he can't begin to imagine how many secrets his rival is still hiding. Shortly afterward, Director Gong Xuan leads the rescue team into the dungeon alongside emergency medics. They immediately rush to save Gongting, while healers stop the massive blood loss from his wounds. Examining the battlefield, Director Gong remarks that surviving against a B-rank level overlord is nothing short of a miracle. Elsewhere, Sato Oda is confirmed physically stable after being purified, while a traumatized Yasmin Kai can barely speak after enduring the horrifying hypnosis. When the rescuers fail to locate Chen anywhere inside the dungeon, Director Gong assumes the student fled after the battle and orders an immediate search. Furious over the catastrophe, he blames the inspection agency for allowing such a dangerous dungeon to slip through their evaluation and vows to have every inspector involved dismissed. Meanwhile, Gong Lin quietly surveys the blood-soaked battlefield with a satisfied smile. He immediately begins fabricating a heroic story, claiming that the examiners were helpless against a sudden monster outbreak and that Gongting alone stepped forward to save everyone. Overwhelmed with guilt, Gongting tries to reveal that Chen was actually the one who defeated the Overlord. Before he can finish speaking, Gonglin deliberately squeezes his son's freshly bandaged shoulder, sending unbearable pain through the wound. Leaning close, he coldly threatens Gongting, making it clear that the credit now belongs to him and that every witness will stay silent. He orders his son to recover, because tomorrow's graduation ceremony will crown Gongting as the Academy's greatest hero. Later that evening, the atmosphere inside the siblings' rented apartment is completely different. Sitting around a warm dinner table, Ju Tong happily congratulates Yuan for officially being accepted into the prestigious Central International Academy of Arts. She excitedly cheers that Yuan is finally chasing her dream of becoming a world-class artist. Across the table, Chen quietly sips his soda with his usual calm expression. Pouting slightly, Yuan asks why he looks so unsurprised, almost as if he already knew she would pass. Chen smiles and sincerely congratulates her, though deep down he remembers that, in his previous life, she received that same acceptance letter on this exact day. Jutong admits she's incredibly jealous because studying in the elite city of Sanhav is an opportunity most ordinary people can only dream of. After the celebration settles down, Yuane quietly admits she's worried. Sanhaven is incredibly far from home, and the cost of living there is far beyond what their family can comfortably afford. Seeing the hesitation on her face, Chen immediately tells her to stop worrying about money. Setting his soda on the table, he calmly reveals that after graduation, he'll also be working in Sanhaven. The announcement leaves both Yuan and Jutong speechless. They jump to their feet, demanding to know how he managed to receive an offer from one of Sanhaven's elite guilds, since those organizations only recruit the absolute best awakeners. Yuan is overjoyed at the thought that the siblings can move there together, while Jutong jokingly complains that she's jealous and will have to study even harder so she can join them someday. Watching his sister's bright smile, Chen silently vows that in this lifetime, she'll never have to give up her dreams for anyone ever again. Later that night, Chen quietly washes away the day's exhaustion in the shower, while reflecting on everything that's happened. Yuan's stalkers have been dealt with, the dangerous graduation exam is finally over, and his agreement with Gongting is unfolding exactly as planned. By allowing Gongting to receive the public credit, Chen expects to collect the entire 1000000 prize tomorrow, enough to finally erase his family's debts. Yet, despite those victories, he knows he can't relax. The Overlord's final words continue echoing in his mind. If the Demon King Wrath had already been sealed before the future invasion, then the timeline he remembered has completely changed. The 3 peaceful years he once believed remained before the apocalypse can no longer be trusted. If only he knew where Wrath was imprisoned, Chen would break the seal himself and eliminate the threat before it could ever grow out of control. Finding Wrath immediately becomes his highest priority, and reaching Sanhaven is now more important than ever. Before confronting a Demon King, however, Chen knows he needs trustworthy allies. Fortunately, tomorrow's graduation ceremony will give him the perfect opportunity to recruit exactly the person he has in mind. Elsewhere, inside a quiet tea room, Student Council Vice President Ling Yu meets with Carl Cavendish, Vice Chairman of the World Guild Alliance. She reports that the notorious rogue awakener known as the Glutton has recently appeared in Everfield County, instantly capturing Carl's attention. Ling Yu explains that although she rushed to investigate, every security camera had already been wiped clean. The only evidence left behind consisted of fresh bloodstains and claw marks matching the Glutton's signature pattern of devouring victims. She further reveals that the killer exclusively targets elite awakeners with rare abilities, and each new victim has been stronger than the last, suggesting the Glutton continuously evolves by stealing the power of those it consumes. Believing another attack is imminent, Ling Yu urges Carl to act quickly. Carl merely smiles, finding the timing strangely interesting. Sliding another report across the table, Ling Yu points out that the latest murder occurred in a low-income neighborhood less than 100 meters from Chen's apartment. Although no one has ever captured an image of the Glutton, she also notes that Chen's strength has been increasing at an almost impossible rate. Before she can finish her theory, Carl quietly suggests that perhaps Chen himself is the mysterious Glutton. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Principal Yuan Long's assistant asks why he's skipping the graduation ceremony of the very students he spent years protecting. Yuan Long smiles peacefully and explains that his role was only to shelter them while they were still weak. Now that they've grown strong enough, it's finally time for them to fly on their own. As he opens the window and releases his birds into the sky, he notices one stubborn little bird refusing to leave its cage, leaving him wondering where it truly wishes to go. At the massive graduation hall, Ma Long and Shang Zuo stare around in amazement at the grand venue prepared for the ceremony. Curious about the secret tiebreaker, Ma Long wonders who won between Chen and Gong Ting. As everyone chats about the academy's strict rules, Ma Long confidently boasts that Chen must have crushed the competition. His words immediately draw ridicule from Gong Chong, Gong Ting's younger brother, who arrogantly tells him to stop praising Chen because Gong Ting is obviously the undisputed champion. The two sides quickly begin exchanging insults and mocking gestures. Behind the scenes, Gong Lin surveys the gathering and notices that representatives from every major guild in the country have arrived. Even the entire Imperial Guild Board is present, making the ceremony one of the year's most important events. Imperial Guild co-founder Guang Yuan and founder Titan Ming personally arrive to welcome the distinguished guests, while Gong Lin quietly calculates his next political move. He intends to use today's ceremony to win over the undecided board members and finally break the deadlock in the upcoming chairman election. Turning to Gong Ting, Gong Lin confidently declares that Carl Cavendish himself will soon present the championship trophy, marking the beginning of the Gong family's rise to the very top. At the same time, he coldly warns his son not to ruin everything, ordering him to deliver a flawless speech and live up to the family's expectations. Under the crushing weight of his father's demands, Gong Ting remains silent, clenching his fist so tightly that his suit wrinkles beneath the pressure. Moments later, the host walks onto the stage and officially opens the 2157th National Awakener University graduation ceremony. As she announces that the final assessment has concluded, Ma Long and the twins erupt with excitement from the audience. With every guild leader and academy official now seated, the long-awaited ceremony finally begins to thunderous applause. While Gong Ting sits in tense silence, Chen quietly watches everything unfold. The host then gestures toward the gleaming championship trophy displayed at center stage, before inviting the ceremony's special guest, Carl Cavendish, vice chairman of the World Guild Alliance, to step forward and announce the official results of this year's graduation assessment. Under the bright stage lights and thunderous applause, Carl steps forward to personally announce the champion. He begins by thanking the Imperial Guild for the invitation, saying it's an honor to witness the rise of the next generation of elite awakeners. Then his tone suddenly changes, as he reveals that something completely unexpected happened during the final examination. Ma Long and the twins immediately sense something is wrong. Carl drops a bombshell, revealing that the supposed D-rank dungeon used for the graduation test was actually a disguised B-rank dungeon. The audience erupts in panic. Everyone knows, even experienced professional teams struggle against B-rank threats, making it almost impossible to imagine how a group of students survived. Carl continues by explaining that, when all hope seemed lost, one student accomplished the impossible through exceptional skill and flawless combat ability. That person single-handedly defeated the B-rank dungeon overlord and brought the entire team back alive. As Chen and Gong Ting quietly listen from their seats, Carl raises his hand and officially declares Gong Ting the strongest graduate of the year. Confetti fills the air while Gong Ting rises to deafening applause. Meanwhile, Ma Long and Shang Zuo are completely stunned, convinced the results must have been manipulated because they refuse to believe Chen could have lost. Gong Chong immediately seizes the opportunity to mock them, proudly boasting that his brother simply exists on another level. Around the hall, students whisper in amazement, believing that anyone capable of clearing a B-rank dungeon alone is far beyond ordinary graduates. As praise continues pouring in for Gong Ting's strength and talent, Chen quietly watches him walk toward the stage. The moment Gong Ting looks back, he remembers the agreement they made inside the dark cave. Chen had willingly offered him first place in exchange for the entire 1000000 prize, asking only that Gong Ting never reveal the existence of his hidden demonic class. Now, Chun simply waits to see what choice his rival will make. Standing before the microphone, Gongting recalls his father's warning to deliver the perfect champion's speech and bring glory to the Gong family. The host warmly invites him to address the audience, and the crowd eagerly admires the calm, dignified young hero standing before them. Many praise him as the perfect heir to the prestigious Gong family, making Gong Lin smile proudly from his seat. But staring down at the speech in his hands, Gongting quietly asks himself whether stolen glory is really worth accepting. He begins by agreeing that Carl's description of the battle was completely accurate. Someone truly did survive an impossible fight, defeat the dungeon boss, and save everyone. Then he shocks the entire auditorium by revealing that none of those achievements belonged to him. Every one of them was accomplished by Chen. The confession leaves both Chen and Carl speechless. Gong Lin instantly flies into a rage as he watches years of carefully planned prestige collapse before his eyes. Gong Chong can only stare in disbelief while the audience erupts into confused whispers. Gongting continues by explaining that the exam spiraled completely out of control, the examiners were incapacitated, and only he and Chun remained standing against the dungeon overlord. He openly praises Chen as an extraordinary lightning assassin who overwhelmed wave after wave of powerful monsters through pure combat ability and instinct alone. Witnessing Chen fight showed him what true strength really looked like. Declaring that Chen is the rightful champion, Gongting carefully keeps his promise by revealing nothing about Chen's hidden demonic class, leaving Chen quietly relieved that his secret remains safe. Chaos immediately spreads throughout the arena as students begin questioning whether the academy manipulated the official results from the very beginning. Rather than becoming angry, Carl simply smiles, clearly enjoying the unexpected twist. Ma Long and Shang Zuo immediately demand a full investigation, convinced someone deliberately stole their friend's victory. The Imperial Guild founders remain silent while processing the shocking revelation. Guang Yuan quickly turns toward Gong Lin, demanding a full explanation for the scandal unfolding before everyone. Unable to endure the humiliation any longer, Gong Lin coldly snorts and storms out of the ceremony without saying another word. Standing alone on stage, Gongting tears his prepared speech into pieces, finally choosing to stop living according to his father's wishes. At that same moment, Principal Yuanlong quietly watches the last bird leave its cage from his office window. Smiling gently, he realizes his student has finally chosen his own path. Before leaving the stage, Gongting looks toward Chen with a competitive grin, admitting defeat this time, while promising that next time, he'll be the one standing at the top. The story then shifts to explain the world's guild system. Thousands of guilds are divided into 5 tiers, ranging from standard all the way to peak, with elite guilds sitting just below the absolute strongest. Only 12 elite guilds exist worldwide, and the Imperial Guild is one of them. During recruitment, ordinary graduates desperately line up, hoping someone will notice them. However, the Divine Eye Guild immediately rejects support class applicants, making it painfully clear how difficult the job market has become. For most graduates, receiving even one offer is a challenge, but an invitation from an elite guild changes a person's entire future. Soon afterward, Imperial Guild recruitment manager Charleston personally hands Ma Long an employment certificate, officially welcoming him into the guild's combat division. The twins, Shang Zuo and Shang Yu, excitedly celebrate after being accepted into the research department. Although Ma Long nervously panics over joining the frontline combat unit, all three can barely contain their excitement about becoming members of one of the world's 12 elite guilds. Watching from nearby, many classmates regret turning down Chen's invitation to form a team during the exam, realizing the opportunity they threw away. Even Gong Chong can only grit his teeth in frustration after discovering he'll be working alongside the very people he looked down on. Meanwhile, inside the executive elevator, Titan Ming asks about this year's recruitment results and learns that the academy expanded admissions because of the appearance of 2 students with perfect evaluation scores. As the elevator doors slide open, Carl is waiting outside. Titan Ming warmly greets the vice chairman and asks whether he's here to observe the recruitment process as well. Carl reveals that he isn't there for recruitment at all. He came to personally see someone off. Hearing that, Titan Ming immediately realizes the World Guild Alliance's vice chairman has been keeping a close eye on their newest prodigy all along. Carl simply laughs, admitting the Imperial Guild was fortunate enough to discover an extraordinary talent this year. Meanwhile, at the registration counter, recruitment manager Charleston notices one final candidate still hasn't completed the paperwork. Irritated, he calls out to Malong, demanding to know why their star recruit, Chen, is wasting everyone's time. Malong instantly panics and begins searching the crowded hall for his missing friend. A moment later, Chen casually strolls back from the restroom, only to be greeted by his teammates yelling at him for disappearing at the worst possible time. Watching the delay, Charleston grumbles that rookies always become arrogant the moment they gain a little fame. He reminds Chen that even the top graduate has to follow procedure and urges him to hurry up and sign the contract. Without the slightest hesitation, Chen calmly announces that he has no intention of joining the Imperial Guild. The entire hall falls silent. His teammates freeze in disbelief, Gong Chong is left speechless, and whispers immediately spread through the crowd as everyone struggles to understand why anyone would reject the world's most prestigious guild. Even the attending guild leaders are visibly surprised. Furious, Charleston slams the desk and shouts that the Imperial Guild prepared an elite senior position for Chen, an opportunity veteran awakeners would gladly risk their lives to obtain. Chen calmly reminds him that he never agreed to join in the first place. Left with no argument, Charleston angrily demands why Chen even showed up. Just then, Carl Cavendish steps forward with an amused smile, saying the timing couldn't be more perfect. The graduates quickly bow as the legendary vice chairman approaches Chen directly. Rather than trying to persuade him to join the Imperial Guild, Carl offers something even more astonishing. He invites Chen to move to Sandhaven with him, and personally recommends him for the legendary Emberstar Knights. The offer leaves Titanming and Gongting completely stunned. The moment the name Emberstar Knights is spoken, the hall erupts into shocked whispers. Everyone knows only 6 peak guilds exist in the entire world, organizations powerful enough to threaten entire nations, and they never recruit publicly. Membership comes only through personal invitations. Yet Chen politely declines even that unbelievable opportunity. He calmly explains that he isn't looking for a guild because he's there to recruit members for his own. Ma Long and the twins stare at him in complete shock, realizing Chen somehow founded a guild before even graduating. Charleston immediately snatches the registration card from Chen's hand and mockingly reads the name aloud, Black Raven Guild. Sneering, he claims that establishing a guild requires enormous funding, strict approval procedures, and an official referral that a fresh graduate could never obtain. He demands to know how someone with no background could possibly accomplish such a thing. Before Chen answers, the receptionist quietly checks the database and confirms that the Black Raven Guild is fully registered. Charleston freezes. The official records show the guild was registered on May 18th, approved on June 18th, and lists Chen as its legal representative. Hearing those dates, Gongting quickly does the math and is completely stunned. Chen had already begun building his own guild an entire month before the graduation exam even started. Everything suddenly makes sense. Chen never cared about becoming champion for fame. He only wanted the 1,000,000 prize money to finance his guild. From the very beginning, joining the Imperial Guild was never part of his plan. Looking at the calm young man standing before them, the recruiters finally realize Chen has been playing an entirely different game all along. Carl can't help smiling, commenting that Chen and his sister truly share the same fiercely independent personality. Chen then points out that every guild needs at least 2 members before it can officially enter dungeons. Since Black Raven currently consists of only himself, he walks straight toward Gongting, extends a recruitment card, and invites his former rival to become the guild's very first member. The story then flashes back to 1 week before graduation. Inside the Mithril Exchange, Chen meets Qingji to discuss 2 important matters. First, he requests a 1-week extension on his debt because tying for first place leaves him 5,000,000 short of the amount he needs. However, that financial problem is insignificant compared to the second revelation. Chen calmly tells Qingji that he is actually a time traveler from 10 years in the future. He explains that multiple demon kings will eventually destroy the world, and that, in his previous life, he was humanity's final survivor. Chen describes how the apocalypse began, when the Demon King Wrath unleashed devastating energy waves, capable of tearing the world apart. Humanity only survived because a genius inventor named Qingji created a defensive device known as the Stillstone, then freely shared it with the world. The invention successfully neutralized Wrath's destructive waves, buying humanity enough time to continue fighting. Hearing this, Qingji stands up in complete disbelief, because the Stillstone is currently nothing more than an unfinished concept that exists only inside his own mind. No one else should possibly know about it. At that moment, he realizes Chen's impossible story may actually be true. Chen immediately invites Qingji to join Black Raven Guild and work alongside him. The story then returns to June 26th. After Chen repays the debt in full, Qingji happily returns his weapon inside the Mithril Exchange archive room. To cover the accumulated interest, Chen casually empties a pouch of rare monster materials onto the table, including poison cage ant legs, blade armor mantis spikes, and a valuable snake gallbladder. Qingji is thrilled by the incredible haul, but Chen simply shrugs, saying he was in too much of a hurry to collect anything else. Qingji then asks how recruitment for Black Raven Guild is progressing. Chen admits that the candidate he wanted most turned down his invitation. Qingji assumes that setback will delay Chen's plans to relocate to Sandhaven, but Chen calmly shakes his head. Instead of slowing down, he's accelerating everything. His original strategy for saving the world consisted of 3 carefully planned phases, and now he's preparing to move into the next stage much sooner than expected. Chen originally divided his plan into 3 clear phases. First, establish a small rookie guild from scratch. Second, grow that guild to gold rank so it would earn permission to challenge S-rank dungeons. Finally, travel to Sandhaven, locate the dungeon imprisoning the Demon King Wrath, and eliminate him before the apocalypse could begin. But everything has changed. Based on the recent events, Chen realizes Wrath may have already appeared far earlier than he remembered, forcing him to abandon his original schedule. Now he must reach Sandhaven immediately and recruit teammates after arriving. Qingji is astonished by how quickly the situation has spiraled beyond expectations. Determined to help, he pulls a small digital music player from his pocket and proudly reveals that he has already prepared a countermeasure. He explains that a producer friend composed a catchy pop song encoded with a special beta frequency, and through a partnership with global superstar Michael Bruno, the track will be released worldwide as a lead single within a week. Since that frequency can neutralize Wrath's mind-controlling waves, broadcasting the song globally becomes the fastest possible defense against the Demon King's influence. Chen is left speechless that Qingji managed to organize a worldwide defensive measure in only 7 days, while Qingji simply adjusts his glasses with quiet satisfaction, happy to contribute to preventing humanity's destruction. Before Chen can recover from that surprise, Qingji unveils another invention. Using his storage ring, he projects a custom smartwatch onto Chen's wrist. The device is capable of tracking S-rank threats and recording their previous locations, making it an ideal tool for hunting Wrath before the invasion begins. Chen is stunned to discover the tracker is even more capable than his own system. Realizing his newest ally is a once-in-a-generation genius who created revolutionary technology in barely a week, Qingji admits he only wishes he possessed the combat strength of an awakener so he could fight alongside everyone. Chen immediately reassures him that his inventions are already invaluable and promises to leave the battlefield to himself. Even so, Chen refuses to lower his guard. Wrath is only the first of many Demon Kings, and he knows gathering more intelligence has become more important than ever. Elsewhere that evening, rain pours outside a hospital where Jin Duxuan has been confined to a padded room, reduced to a drooling shell by Chen's hypnosis. Watching his broken son, Ronald Jin burns with rage and demands to know who dared to destroy the pride of the Jin family. Without hesitation, he dispatches a squad of elite A-rank awakeners, ordering them to hunt down the culprit at any cost. Accepting the mission, the team's leader calmly reveals an energy blade concealed inside his umbrella, confidently promising to return with the target's head before the day is over. Suddenly, an overwhelming pressure crashes down upon the room. Ronald collapses to his knees, vomiting from the sheer force of the presence approaching. The elite awakeners instantly sense an unimaginably powerful creature drawing near and prepare their weapons and abilities. Before anyone can react, the visitor appears directly inside the room wearing a sinister grin. Calmly announcing that it's time to feed, the newcomer reveals himself as Voraloon, the Demon King of Gluttony. The story then briefly explains the world's combat system. Awakeners are divided into 5 primary classes. Warriors dominate the front line with tremendous durability. Assassins overwhelm enemies through speed and precision. Mages control the battlefield with devastating ranged magic. Enchanters specialize in healing, buffs, and removing negative effects from allies. The 5th class stands apart from all the others, abandoning defense entirely in exchange for the greatest offensive power available. The scene then shifts back to Chen's training inside the Void Tower. Arriving on the volcanic 2nd floor, he faces the Dreadspire Overlord, an enemy specializing in the Archer class. While dodging destructive plasma beams throughout the lava-filled cavern, Chen carefully studies the attack trajectories and discovers that the monster must briefly recharge after every shot. Realizing that tiny delay is his only opportunity, he charges forward with his lightning dagger, hoping to finish the fight in one decisive strike. But the boss anticipated exactly that response. The attack is a trap. A blinding beam erupts at point-blank range, triggering a massive explosion that instantly jolts Chen awake in his bed. Gasping for breath after being expelled from the Void Tower simulation, he can only curse the monster's cunning tactics. The following morning, Yuan finds her brother sprawled across the couch looking completely exhausted while little Leo sleeps peacefully on his chest. Curious, she asks whether he slept at all. Chen casually admits he spent the entire night hunting and ran into a troublesome opponent. When Yuan asks what exactly he was hunting, he quickly changes the subject and begins discussing their upcoming move to Sanhaven. He explains that after next week's memorial ceremony for their parents, he intends to leave several days ahead of her so he can prepare their new home before she arrives. Secretly, however, Chen knows he's racing against the accelerating timeline of the coming apocalypse. Watching Yuan happily cuddle Leo, he feels relieved knowing the cub will remain by her side to protect her while they're apart. Yet one dangerous weakness continues bothering him. Under certain conditions, his psychic connection with Leo completely disappears. He remembers how the bond was severed the moment the dungeon gates closed behind him during the graduation exam, and only returned after he defeated the Overlord and reopened the exit. Thinking back on Yuan's kidnapping, Chen realizes that if defeating the boss had taken even 30 seconds longer, both his sister and Leo would have died before he could reach them. That terrifying possibility convinces him he needs another solution. Before leaving, Chen unexpectedly asks Yuan if he can borrow Leo for his upcoming trip to Sanhaven, leaving both his sister and the little lion cub completely stunned. The story closes by explaining that dungeons are among the world's most valuable resources. Because successful dungeon clears generate enormous wealth and rare materials, governments auction the rights to newly discovered dungeons, turning high-rank locations into fiercely contested prizes worth millions. The world's dungeon economy is fiercely competitive. Every newly discovered dungeon is auctioned by the government, allowing wealthy elite guilds to spend enormous fortunes securing exclusive rights to the highest-ranked locations. By the time the major organizations finish buying the best dungeons, only the low-tier leftovers remain for the public, forcing independent awakeners and unaffiliated parties to compete for whatever is left. Inside one small local guild office, a minor party leader complains that they barely managed to win the license for a D-rank dungeon. His companion reminds him they should feel lucky since they haven't had work for months. But with one member still missing, the leader immediately sends a recruiter into the market to find a warrior for the upcoming expedition. Because government regulations forbid entering a dungeon with fewer than 2 people, independent awakeners who failed to join established guilds gather at recruitment markets every day, desperately forming temporary parties just to survive. One hopeful applicant, an E-rank nuclear chanter named Tanaka Daiki, enthusiastically advertises his weapon-heating support abilities to a recruiter. Before he can finish speaking, a girl carrying a spiked bat bluntly shoves him aside, saying she's only looking for a warrior and has no need for a weak support class. Watching the scene unfold, Chen realizes that the safest way to protect Yuan is to help Leo gain real combat experience and level up. Unfortunately, Black Raven Guild still owns no dungeon licenses, and the Dream Spire is far too dangerous for a young cub. That leaves him only one option: joining a public dungeon party. Disguising himself with glasses and adopting the fake identity Ashton Lee, Chen registers as an ordinary E-rank stellar tamer, while Leo hides beneath a hood, hoping to blend in with rookie awakeners.